Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to Sheikhs Breaks. On tonight's show, we have our respected guests, Maria Mahmood from Muslim Youth Helpline, Lynn Ali Northcott from Muslim Sports Foundation, and Dr. Fulla Lamar from British Board of Scholars and Imams. Today's conversation will be centered around Sisters in Islam, inshallah, the true narrative. So before we start, I'd like to introduce you to my respected co-host, Brother Khalik. If you make yourself known.
Hey, assalamu alaikum everybody. It's lovely to be back again for another great show.
Excellent, excellent. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest. Our first guest is Maria Mahmood, as I said, from Muslim Youth Helpline. Maria was appointed Director of Muslim Youth Helpline in July 2020. Previously, she worked in Dubai in strategic communications, managing a government relations project spanning India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Maria had served as co-chair on the Board of Trustees at the Muslim Youth Helpline. In her spare time, Maria's club secretary for FC Baylis, no less, who play in the East Berkshire Football League. She is keen to encourage sports diplomacy in her local town. Maria received an LLB in law from SOAS and an MSc in development studies from the LSC. So, Assalamu alaikum, Maria.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you today?
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining the call. If we sort of get straight in the conversation, Maria, because I know you may have to leave a little earlier. So I just wanted to ask you to share with the participants a little bit of your background and how you got to, or your journey to where you are now in terms of your roles. Can you hear me?
Oh, I think we've lost.
Sorry, Mara, I think we've just lost you.
I think we lost Maria's audio just there. Oh,
sorry,
she's back again.
I'm back. Just had a bit of a technical glitch.
So, Mara, I'll just repeat that question.
Sorry.
So just wanted you to share with the participants your journey into where you are at the moment in terms of your leadership roles, etc.
Oh, thank you for having me. So I started at the Muslim Youth Helpline actually as co-chair in 2019. But before that, I was working in Dubai, and I was there for 3 years, and I'd had enough. I'd had enough because in Dubai you almost wear one hat, and that's your professional role, your professional hat, and that's all you do. You only have that one identity, and it was dissimilar to the life that I led in the UK previously, which was, you were very engaged with the community at any level you wanted to be in, and whatever role you took, you almost wore several hats in addition to that, and you felt connected to your local community, your school community, and I missed that. And I'd said to myself, if I'm going to move back, I'm going to search for a cause that I want to dedicate myself to and my time to. And actually the following few days I was on Instagram, and a lovely friend posted about a Muslim Youth Helpline, and I thought, oh, that is the place I want to work. That's the cause that I want to dedicate my the next 5 or 10 years to, and I fell in love with their vision and mission. So I came back to the UK, still working for the organization in Dubai, but slowly transitioning back into life, back into the UK. And I joined MYH as co-chair. And after that, I became director in July 2020.
Sorry, excellent, mashallah. So day to day, what does your role involve?
You know what? No one day is similar. Every day is very unique, and it's almost it's so unique that I've got to check my diary the night before because I need to prepare myself, and it's always a bit of a surprise what's going to happen. But you know, as the director of the organisation, I need to ensure that the vision and mission of the organisation is as strong as ever. I have a brilliant team on the ground, and so my helpline manager manages the entire helpline team. And what I do is I make sure that, you know, we are an organisation that is doing what we're meant to do, which is to serve those young people that need us the most. We're a unique organisation, which means that there aren't many helplines out there like us. Actually, we are the only helpline out there that is focusing primarily on mental health and young Muslims. Which is a lot of pressure. And that means that we need to make sure that everything that we do is done well. Everything that we do is supporting young Muslims, and that we're almost doing a job that mainstream services aren't able to do. We're reaching an audience and a demographic that mainstream services aren't able to do. And so because of that, we need to make sure that, you know, if we are filling that gap in, we're doing it well and we're doing it justice. So yeah, that's my role.
No, excellent. I mean, that's quite inspiring. And just in terms of the actual helpline itself, tell us a bit more about the structure, how it operates, how people access that. Is it 24 hours, etc., etc.?
I'd love to. Okay, so the helpline we've been running for 19 years, and it's a listening service, and we provide we provide emotional support. We practice active listening on our helpline, and then we're able to signpost to additional services if required. So we operate every day from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. You can reach us on phone, you can email us, you can web chat, and only recently we introduced WhatsApp to our services as well. So you have 4 platforms that young people can reach. It's a free and confidential space. We're non-judgmental, we're non-directional, and we have some amazing staff members on hand to help support young people. This year we saw an increase of 313% of calls coming into our helpline. It's been a difficult year for everyone, and I'm sure everyone on this call has had their own versions of trials and tribulations this year. But for young Muslims, we've had the most distressing calls coming in that we've ever had before. We've had some very heavy calls, a lot of safeguarding concerns, and that's had an impact on just the way we operate as well. We've had to introduce a lot of buffers for our team members because, you know, they're working from home, they're doing their usual 9-to-5 job, and then they're jumping on the helpline to help support young people, and that's also had an impact on their health and well-being as well. You know, they're not used to taking such heavy calls, and they themselves have had a lot of tough times as well. You know, we as a community have been impacted ourselves personally by COVID and by bereavement. So it's been a very tough year on the helpline for our service users, for our community, and for my team members.
So, I mean, that's a lot of pressure, Maria, and we spoke offline about, you know, leadership and sort of aspiring to leadership, and I wondered how you cope with leadership and how best you manage that.
For me, it's definitely having a big support system around you. I lean on my family and unofficially my advisory board, which are my friends and my family, and I've got a good bunch of people around me who I tap into. It's never easy, whatever role, whether it's a leadership role or a non-leadership role that you take on. You know, we are juggling so many different parts of us and so many hats that we wear outside of work, at work, outside of work, within the community. And so it's so important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, that your well-being comes first. If you're not well and ready and supporting yourself, you know, you're not really able to carry out the work and do a good job, but also listen to, you know, what your body is telling you, what your mind is telling you, but also remember that, you know, that one role doesn't define you completely. You wear so many other hats, and you have so many other people that you rely on, and people rely on you as well, and they are as wonderful and as important. So that's really important for me to know that this is just one component of my day-to-day and my identity, but actually apart from that, you know, I am a sister, I'm a daughter, I am a friend, and that's so important. And those people are my lifeline. And it's so interesting, because you'll have a very tough day and you'll think that your day is like super tough, it's been the worst, and you'll come in and you'll try to explain it to your family, and they'll just completely tell you, well, that's okay, but you know, you continue. And they'll definitely put things into perspective very quickly, very, very quickly. So yeah, they are my buffer, they are my support system, and that's how if I am ever challenged at work or in any situation, I do make sure that I put that time in with that support system.
MashaAllah, no, that's beautifully articulated, Maria. So alongside that, I'd like to ask you, in getting to your position, had you sort of received any were there any barriers as a young Muslim female, any challenges to getting into those roles on your journey?
I think there are always going to be some unique barriers to being a young Muslim, a female, in any sector that you work in. But what is so inspiring is that, you know, we're building on so many examples of amazing young women, Muslims, in these amazing fields, and that inspires you. That inspires you to, you know, I may be that first, or I may be the second, but I am going to be that example for other young girls, and that's so nice, which is really important. But there are still barriers to it, and which is why I believe that we should push forward. I think that these challenges are great, and if anything, they make me want to be in that space even more. It's not just outside. It's not just barriers from outside the community, but it's also from within the community. You know, it's difficult to get into these spaces. But if you are privileged enough to actually get into those spaces, and I think you should, you know, be very thankful and grateful, but also make sure that you tell yourself that, you know, I have a right to be here. You know, I am grateful. I'm grateful to God, but I'm not going to take this as like I'm grateful to everyone that allowed me to be in this space, because this space should be mine as much as anyone else's. So it's being that there's that balance of gratitude as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, one thing that stood out in your bio, and I couldn't let this go, Maria, was your position as club secretary for FC Baylis. Now, you've got to tell us about that. So how did you get into FC Baylis, and how did you get up to the secretary level?
We're a very small team. I'm a very new team, just to disclaim everyone. But sports is very important in my family, and growing up, we're a huge football and cricket family. And yes.
Finally, another cricket fan.
No, we're a huge cricket and football family. And so growing up, I was always around sports, whether you're watching it or, you know, on the weekend people are playing friendly matches in the park as a community, or actually at league level and at county level. You know, I would always be attending family matches, or, you know, someone's involved in a match and I'd be attending that. So I was always around sports. You know, it wasn't something so unique. It was something that was quite apparent in our household, and that was for, you know, boys and girls, men and women. You know, we would get involved, and that was so important for us. And then growing up, I played a bit of field hockey at school until the age of 18. I loved hockey. That was my game. And then I started university, and I almost neglected any type of sport, which was really, really sad. When I moved back to the UK, and a bit of sport in Dubai, but when I moved back into the UK, you know, I was really interested in, a lot of my younger cousins were playing football and getting involved in some of the leagues, the local leagues, and I really wanted to get involved. And I saw that it was such an amazing introductory to sports for the young people, and especially because there aren't many examples of young British Asian players in the Premier League, actually. So, you know, it's if you are of an identity that isn't representative, you know, I think you should be even more forceful in those areas, in those arenas, because it's so important. It's so important to do a bit more legwork, because why shouldn't we be involved? Why shouldn't we be there? Why shouldn't we be involved in these spaces? And so when my younger cousins get involved and play, and I really hope and pray that, you know, soon we do get better, nice, good, decent examples within these spaces. But whilst that happens, I think any kind of opportunity you get, you should definitely be involved. And for me, local football is amazing. It's an area where, you know, it's a community collaboration, and that's so important for me. And it's also something that I can just do on the weekends, and then in the evenings I get involved. I do a lot of the background work, and it's also something that I can just switch off from my actual day-to-day work, which is nice. It's very different to what I do from my 9 to 5.
No, that's amazing. That's completely amazing and inspirational. I mean, I mentioned the themes for the show were, you know, leadership, in inspiration, and you've certainly given that in heaps and bounds. I mean, one word that you mentioned, I mean, opportunity. I was talking to my wife before the show, and, you know, it seems to be opportunities maybe far and few between, but you do really need to grab them when they arise, because, you know, it seems to be that you need the opportunity, you need support from the parents, and you need genuine interest. And if those three sort of amalgamate, then you may be onto something.
You know, we speak about so many of these, and it's not just the sports sector, but so many sectors. Actually, it's so much more difficult for someone who is Muslim, let's just say female, from BME backgrounds. We've got to work extra hard to get our foot in the door for a lot of these spaces and places, and that's really sad. And so if, however, you do get this opportunity, you know, it's an extra additional kind of burden for some people, actually, because it's something that we don't have to always represent, you know, who we are, but we sometimes want to, because we feel like, you know, we are one of the lucky ones to be there. And so, you know, if you have that opportunity, it's almost like it's an added layer of pressure, which I feel it's not always fair, but for me, I'm okay with that, and for a lot of people, they're not okay, but that's completely fine as well. You know, you just want to play football. You don't want to be that the female Muslim that's involved in football. You know, you don't want to be like asked to like be that platform. But if you're okay with that, you know, I think it's beautiful to speak about it and to engage with other organizations and collaborate, because, you know, you want to showcase that whoever else is very similar to you or looks at you and thinks, oh, I look like her, or I look like him, and I speak like her and him, and our backgrounds are the same. If they can do it, then it's, you know, it's definitely a space that I can fight to get my foot in as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we hope, Mara, that you're an inspiration to all our young girls, sisters, and mums included. So now we've got lots of questions building up on the chat, Mara. So I'm going to hand over to Brother Khalik to take those questions, if you could, from the floor. So Khalik, can you
yeah, sure. What a wonderful story. It's amazing and inspirational. I think fantastic. You know, thank you so much for sharing with us. Now, you're right, there are lots and lots of questions. So I'm actually going to ask very first of all, I think Maria Hamid was the first person. If you don't mind, Mariha, would you like to unmute your line and ask the question?
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I just had a question about the organization itself. It sounds like a really amazing initiative. I was just wondering, because it sounds like from what you said that some quite complex mental health and social issues might pop up. And I was just wondering, is there a particular training that you give your staff, and do they need, obviously it's volunteer based from what I'm gathering, is there kind of a level of qualification that's needed? And just also with regards to the religious aspects, I can imagine there might be some complex religious issues that come into it as well. And to what degree, I mean, you mentioned active listening, but to what degree are the volunteers on the other end allowed to kind of give advice? And, you know, obviously we're not all equipped to deal with complex things and there is signposting, but is there a degree to which the volunteers kind of can steer people in a direction, or is it very much just there to lend an ear and, you know, send them to a scholar if there's like a complex religious issue? Just kind of wondering a bit more about how it works, I guess.
Sure, thank you for that question, Maria. Also, I've never heard your name before. It's a very nice name. So a very good question, and please, I'm going to try to answer all of it, but if I don't, please remind me of the question. But so we actually have paid members of staff on our helpline, and along with some volunteers. But primarily the helpline is led by paid members of staff who are our helpline officers. So we are a listening service and we provide emotional support. So the training that we give is training on how to actively listen on our helplines, how to give empathy, how to take calls, how to safeguard calls, and then we have the unique procedure that we take for every call, but also that is then challenged, and we have to then, if that call is a challenging call, and let's just say it's a safeguarding call, we would then have to take a different procedure for that call. So for instance, if it is a suicide prevention call, you know, we would have to do the suicide prevention procedure. So in terms of training, we have in-house training, but also external training, and we train, we've given training to our helpline officers every 2 months, every 3 months, depending on, you know, the difference that we see as primary concerns on the helpline. So for instance, at the beginning of lockdown, we had to retrain our helpline officers in bereavement. You know, that was very important because we were getting a lot more calls around bereavement. So our helpline officers are trained in active listening, and then during the call, our remit is that we are here to be that safe space for young people, and we're a non-judgmental safe space for young people. And so what we do is we actively listen, we de-escalate the call, and we make sure that, you know, that person is safe, they aren't in any harm, and that it's completely led by the user. So the parameters actually are completely set by our service user, and they are able to tell us, you know, what is on their mind and how they are feeling, and we can probe them, we can question them, but we do not give advice. We are not an advice or a counselling service. We provide them with tools and support them in coming to maybe a conclusion or a few next steps that might help them, but we do not give advice, and we support them in that. And that's when our signposting comes in. So for some people, that call may just be enough. You know, they may just want to talk, have someone on the other end of the call speak to them about some of their like deepest, darkest concerns, and they talk to us and they're fine, and then that's it. Other people, they may want to call us the next day. We're not a befriending service, but sometimes, you know, they may need a few calls from the helpline, and that's completely fine. And then you have other callers who either need to be referred or we can signpost them. Now we signpost to a lot of organizations on our signposting list. It's a very lengthy list. We engage with GPs and therapists and mainstream mental health services, counselors, domestic violence helplines, addiction support, gambling support. You know, we get a wide variety of calls, and so it really does depend on, you know, what the service user feels is the next step for them. It's a conversation that we don't completely lead. It is led by the service user, but we do support them. So we do ask them, what are those next steps? What is the next step that you feel would be most comfortable for you? And so through that, we're able to identify what that is. In terms of religious advice, on our signposting, we do signpost quite heavily to imams and masjids. But once again, we do not give advice. So that's whether that's religious advice or just general advice. We don't give that. We are purely a listening support service for young people. I hope that answered your question. I realized that it was a very long question, but I may have missed a few points.
No, you answered it fully. Thank you. That's quite clear. So I was just unsure about specifically, but you clarified it's more of a counselling service rather than advisory. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair for the lovely question, and Jazakallah khair for answering it so comprehensively. It's such an interesting role and interesting organization. I'm going to move over to the next question, actually, before I start asking so many questions of my own. I think it was Ismat. If you'd like to unmute your line, please, and ask your question.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. Very inspiring, and actually you've answered my question by answering very last question.
Sorry.
About links with other organisations,
right.
Just how much support are you getting from them, and really, if there were chances that maybe some of your callers may originally have called other organisations, and then they might have been signposted to you if they were specifically Muslims. So, but you answered the questions.
Yeah, just to touch upon that again, it's actually we do get other organisations referring service users to us. So, for instance, Brinados, they refer a lot of their service users to us, specifically if they need a lot more culturally and religiously sensitive support. That's where we come in. The Islamophobia response unit, they deal with a lot of their clients, and actually they can provide them a particular service, but when it comes to the emotional support, that's when we come in. So it's really interesting, the collaboration and partnerships that we have with so many organizations, that MYH has a very unique place even for their service users, because we're providing a service that a lot of mainstream services are unable to do so, simply because they aren't culturally sensitive, and we're hoping to provide a lot of training for other organizations, and we have done in the past as well, but for us it's so important that the person on the other end of the phone, for our service user, that they are very familiar with their background and their understanding and the terminology that they use, and that is so important, because when you are very vulnerable and you're speaking about something that is very, very difficult for you to speak about anyway, to begin with, that you're comfortable about, and you're trusting the person on the other end, and that's our unique selling point, really, is that we are that familiarity on the other end of the phone.
Thank you.
That's great. Sorry. Thank you. I just want to say thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. And I think Avais has got a question next. He's got quite an interesting one, I think. Avais, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I have a couple of questions. So I'm going to be cheeky, and I'm going to throw a couple of questions. So I'm not going to ask my first question. I'll ask my second one, because I think that one's probably more interesting for everyone on the call. Just from the perspective of a grassroots movement from the community, in terms of what are we doing that is failing the youth, and actually what can we do at the grassroots level to, as in, provide a similar service to what you're doing to the youth, right? Because I understand, as in, the youth are phoning yourself, which is something that's needed because it's not made available within the community. So I'm just trying to understand in terms of why is that happening at the community level, and what can the community do to actually bring that safe space locally? That's my first question.
Shall I answer the first one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Very good question. I think the big the big picture really is that support us as an organization or any other mental health organization similar to MYH who is providing that service. Understand that and value mental health organizations that are filling a particular gap. So that's probably like the bigger task, is to support those organizations. But also you've actually very rightly touched on this, is that the safe space, it's building those safe spaces, and at the local level or the family level, it is speaking about mental health and well-being. It may not necessarily have to be about mental health, but, you know, speak about well-being and, you know, whether you've had a good day or a bad day or what's on your mind. Make the home setting, make those kind of conversations quite natural in the home setting. And so what that really does is it creates that safe space that if your child or a young person in your family ever needs to speak about something that's on their mind, they do know that it's possible to speak about it within that space. You know, is that they can identify someone at home or in the family or in the community level that is able to do that. And what you're actually doing is you're creating that space, but you're also telling them that I can have a bad day and that's okay. You know, it doesn't make me any less of a person. I'm still a strong person, but I can still have moments of, you know, when I'm not being my complete self, and that is okay. And you're creating that space for them. At a community level, it's so important that we understand mental health and mental well-being, and we understand coping mechanisms, and we understand what it means to take a break. But we also understand that it's okay that we can discuss mental health and illness, and it's not a taboo subject. We do need to destigmatize mental health and conversations around mental health, and that is so important. A lot of young people do call in and they have no space or no area within the community to go to and reach out and have these conversations, because number one, they know that no one values conversations around mental health, and also how stigmatized mental health is, that for one, they never thought it was okay to even talk about it. And number two, it's if I have this concern, there is no avenue for me, because no one values these conversations. But also, you know, culturally they have so many barriers to mental health, and that's so sad. Through my organization, actually, I want to say that there is so much positivity around it, is that through this organization I engage with frontline workers like masjids and imams and other organizations that are at the community level doing a lot of work. And when I speak to them, it gives me so much confidence that we as a community, we are moving forward, we are getting rid of these barriers. And sometimes it's a nice surprise when I'm talking to these people and they get it. You know, they get young people, they get they're very forward thinking in terms of mental health and well-being, and that is nice. You know, that is like the nice surprise that actually we should give them the benefit of the doubt that we are at local level doing a lot of work. And so yeah, that's a nice surprise. I was
going to say that's so amazing. I think, you know, I think the work that you guys do is unprecedented, really, and I think a lot of communities may not realize that you guys are around. But I know you know, so many people, by looking at the questions, are so interested in what you're up to and what's going on. We're going to take one last question before I hand back over to Amir, and then maybe we can circle back to you if you have time, or if you can stick around for a bit longer. I think Sophie, if you're still there and able to unmute, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Khalid. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum, Maria.
Wa alaikum salam, Sophie.
I won't keep everyone, and I'm just going to shift a little bit. It's so important what you're doing at the moment, and with mental health, with the recognition of mental health being there. I won't talk about that, but just from a personal point of view, from what I understand, you qualified as a lawyer, and you were working in Dubai, and an opportunity arose. You mentioned that a friend of yours mentioned this. Were you previously thinking about helping young people in terms of mental health, or was it just this was presented to you as a completely new idea, and you simply thought, gosh, this is really important, I'd like to have a go, I'd like to do this? Because from that, look how enormous this organization has grown, and you've clearly had a really key role in organizing, you know, on so many levels in helping with that. But just can you just sort of say, give us a little story about that? And perhaps it be an inspiration to other young people or people or anyone. It's not young people, just if we want to get involved with helping others, you know.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for that question. Just a disclaimer before I answer that question, you know, I think it's so important, especially the role that I play, that in the organization, the people that actually do the hardest work are the helpline officers, and for safety reasons, you know, they aren't the face of the organization. They have to remain anonymous. So I am the face of the organization, but I don't do the hardest job. Actually, the organization is led and carried by people that work hard on the helplines, who have trained to do this, who have studied to do this, who have a background and a wealth of experience in mental health and call handling. So, you know, they are the real heroes. My story, actually in Dubai, I did work. So I worked for a strategic communications company, and a lot of my projects were actually around young people. I did a huge project on polio and voter rights. And so it depending on which country I was working in at the time, because I did move around a lot of my projects were youth-centric. That has always been my space. It's always been a space that I've been heavily involved in. And so when I wanted to move back to the UK, I still wanted to continue with that theme. And when I was searching for a cause that was so unique, MYH came to mind, but for many reasons. Number one, the work that they do and the gap that they fill, but also the fact that they're not scared to have tough questions, and we are having those tough questions. We are talking about taboo subjects that not a lot of people are happy to talk about, but it's very needed, because, you know, these are challenges that young people are facing, and we can't hide behind them. We can't hide and think that these don't exist. You know, young people need our support, and because mainstream services are unable to be that support for them, for a lot of young people, whether that's trying to get those support services, trying to get involved with them, or the fact that they may not be appropriate for them, that, you know, we can't just ignore the fact that there is no service available for young people. And so that's why I was so attracted to MYH, because they're filling in a gap that is so important, and so worthy. So so there was a link. There is a small link between the lines, but, you know, mental health is very unique.
It actually makes quite a lot of sense, right? Because I think because you were working with the youth, you're able to sort of continue with that. And it seems that you're very passionate right from the start to not only get involved whilst you were over there, but to continue. And it kind of, the passion moved to something to this extent. Before I sort of hand it over back to Amr, I was going to ask a question, is maybe allow you to plug a little bit as well, but how does this community get involved, and what can they do to participate? Or if we wanted to let the kids in our community know that this is available to them, how do they go about doing that?
Sure. This is actually touching upon what the question from Avais, I think, was, you know, how do we get involved and whether communities are getting involved. And honestly, it starts from the home structure. It starts from the community level, where you are having these conversations, where we are discussing mental health at the local level.
Sorry to interrupt you. I meant kind of specifically in terms of, you know, do you want to give a quick plug? Is there sort of a phone number that people can call to volunteer, or is there kind of like a main website where people kind of become involved, that kind of thing?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can. So I said previously that we have 4 platforms that you can reach us, our helpline on. We are open every day from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. If you go on myh.org.uk, you can see our phone number. You can email us from that website, and you can web chat and WhatsApp us as well. So they've got 4 free platforms available. Go on that website, have a look at, you know, our values, how our mission statement, how we conduct ourselves, and yeah.
Brilliant, perfect. So I'm going to hand back over to Amr now. I think he's ready and waiting to sort of bring you to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jazakallah khair, Maya, for your eloquent presentation on what you do, and touching on themes of mental health and sports as well. So if you can stay on the call, that'd be great, but I know you've got to go, so inshallah maybe we'll meet up again. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Alaikum.
So thank you to our next guest who's been waiting patiently, Lynn Ali Northcutt. So Lynn is a psychotherapist specializing in adolescent counseling in school, continuing the mental health theme. She is an England athletics running and fitness leader with an MSc in psychology. She has completed 2 world major marathons and is a multi-distance runner, including road and cross country, as well as off-road mountain biking. She's also the brand owner of Jog On, a mental health focused sportswear brand specializing in sports hijabs. Lynn facilitates mind and body stronger workshops designed to process emotions, manage anxiety and other mental health conditions, although through sports and movement using mindfulness techniques. So assalamu alaikum, Lynn, are you there?
Yes, walaikum salam, I'm here in mind.
Thank you. Thanks for waiting so patiently, Lynn, and thank you for joining the call. So Lynn, if we could start by basically getting some background into how you got into the roles you're in, a little bit about your psychotherapy background, and also obviously sort of segue into the Jog On.
Yeah, so trying to put it all in a nutshell. I grew up in Portsmouth. I was from a Church of England background. I was born in 1979, so I'm very much an 80s child. Growing up when there was no internet or devices, thank God. So I spent the majority of my childhood outdoors, which I'm really grateful for. I have 2 older brothers who introduced me to every ball and bat that you can imagine, you know, baseball, football, cricket, like literally every single sport I've pretty much tried, even the posh ones like croquet and all of that.
You could have stopped at cricket, to be fair.
No, all of it. It's brilliant. I was also a real avid dancer as well, ballet and modern and tap dancing. And so I was really, really active, and I didn't realize it at the time because I was in my mind, I was just playing or competing. But I really feel like if it wasn't for being so active, my childhood would have been really difficult. I was brought up in a single parent family with domestic violence, and my father passed away when I was 12 as well. So I went through some difficult stuff. But if it wasn't for being active and having a lot of fun while doing it, and also just enjoying walks outside in forests and down the beach, being in Portsmouth, not too far, I really feel like doing all of that stuff really helped me to survive some of the difficult things I was going through when I was a child. I'll just fast forward a little bit because my teens are really horrible. Don't want to talk about that. But let's say I was less active in my teens, you know, so I went up to university at UEL when it was in the old Barking campus, and met my husband, who's of Pakistani origin. And then after a while started researching Islam and really enjoyed, especially in particular, 2 main aspects of Islam that appealed to me the most was women's rights in Islam, looking at how Islam gave women so many rights that even in our country here in the UK, women, you know, have only really kind of had in recent years, over the last 100 years. And the other aspect was the science in the Quran, and that reading about the miracles and the scientific explanations in the Quran was for me the deal breaker when it came to becoming Muslim, and that happened in 1999. So I had 2 children, and while they were little, I got involved in a mother and toddler group, Medina Tots in Ilford, and was really enjoying doing circle time and singing and playing with the kids. The mothers were present, but we were very much kind of leading the group with arts and crafts and all that kind of stuff, and I really enjoyed that. And then I started looking into something I'd been thinking about for a long time, which was getting involved in counselling. So I went on to study counselling, and in particular, I was really interested in addiction. Because my father had died of alcoholism. So for me, I'd been around addiction from day one, really. So I've always had a bit of an interest in that. And those horrible years I won't talk about, my teenage years as well, a lot of experimenting on different things. So I studied addiction, became an addiction counsellor, and was working in initially a very posh residential rehab in Chelmsford, where people were paying around £18,000 for a month of therapy. And then after spending some time there, I was went the other end of the scale and was in Bethnal Green and Whitechapel, mostly working with the Bangladeshi community, the heroin and crack users in particular, and did that for a while and found that was really difficult full time with 2 small children, and then decided to take some time out and really reevaluate what I was doing, do some self-care and literally not do anything except for just be mum. And I'm so glad that I did that, because it then kind of changed the course of my life. I decided I still wanted to work in counselling and helping people. So I retrained, and I found a wonderful charity that I still work for now called Place to Be, which goes into schools and offers counselling projects in schools. And that's what I've been doing in my career for the last, I think, 7 or 8 years now, project managing a counselling service in secondary schools, and really loving that a lot. And meanwhile, around the same time I took the year out, I got back into becoming really active, going to the gym and starting running, and just finding that that was a really great healing for me. Running gave me so much for my mental health, alongside my faith and alongside all the other stuff I was doing, and personal therapy as well. I don't know whether to hit the pause button and you ask me questions or just keep going.
No, that's fantastic. Great start, Lynn. And again, touched upon some really important themes. One thing that stood out in what you said was one of the reasons why you became Muslim, in terms of the women's rights and the increased access, or apparent increased access to women's rights as a Muslim. How do you perceive Muslim women's role today, from as a founder of your own company and as a psychotherapist? How do you see Muslim women's role today?
I think if you reflect back on the early Muslims, those that were around with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I think it's very similar to what I would see the role today. So they were building a community when they moved to Medina, and the early Muslims built a community, and they were almost starting from scratch almost, and giving us if you think of the community as a role model in itself, they've given us something to aspire to. We have women that were business women and community women and teachers, and they were really very active. And I think that we can take many examples from those early Muslim females and use them as role models in our role here today in 2020, which has been a rubbish year, let's all admit it.
Yeah, no, not great. But despite that, you still managed to form your sportswear company. So can you tell us a little bit more about how that developed and how you've gone about setting that up? Yeah,
so I was doing all my running and gym, and I found it was a real struggle to find sportswear that ticked all the boxes for me, which was being great on performance, but also looking good as well, because I feel it's really important to feel confident and comfortable with the way that you look as well as the way that you feel. And I was really excited about some of the big brands, or one in particular that brought out a sports hijab, and then felt quite disappointed with both its performance and its aesthetic appeal as well. And I was just thinking, well, why don't I just do one myself? And luckily my husband has a cousin in India who is also a really amazing, strong female, and she has her own factory and she's a designer. And so together we were able to design and produce sports hijabs, which is where I started my jog on company, which has now gone into sportswear as well. And women are really coming, you know, they're texting me and DMing me all the time and saying how my products are really giving them confidence, and in fact it's changing their lives. They're able to wear something that they feel confident in, to give running a go or going to the gym, or, you know, whatever sports it is. They feel like they've now got something that they can wear and is easily accessible, especially here in the UK, where there wasn't really any good brands out that were producing sportswear for Muslim women. And they're telling me that it's changing their life, and that's amazing. And that's what I wanted to do, that when I set out to create Jog On.
Excellent. So we'll definitely get you to pop the company name in the chat later on and give you a plug there. But it's amazing to see you sort of flourish in that role. So again, you've talked about your conversion. What challenges did you face, Lynn, as a Catholic background?
Church of England.
Church of England.
Now Henry VIII and his makeup.
I mean, in terms of parents, family, etc.
Well, yeah, it was a challenge. Some members of my family were really supportive. They could see that I had made an academic decision around it, you know, and wasn't being forced in any way. And others had the opposite opinion. And there was quite a few years until I was able to, you know, build a better relationship with those particular members of my family. It's interesting because one in particular said to me, you know, you're a white, middle class, educated woman. Why would you want to put yourself in a minority and give up all of the privileges that you have to succeed in society? And I've said, you know, I don't see that I'm putting myself in a position that sets me back. You know, if anything, I feel like it's going to help me to go forward. And that person said, you'll never get anywhere in life unless you take your hat off. You know, hat, he was meaning your hijab. You know, he couldn't even say the word hijab out of choice, but he said, you'll never get anywhere in life unless you take it off. And now, you know, I'm making, you know, I've got a business selling the very thing I was told to remove. And actually that person is supporting me and helping me and doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, helping me build my website, and, you know, the technical stuff behind Jog On is actually this particular person. And, you know, I never thought that would ever happen 20 years later. So, you know, I suppose, you know, it's just always building up a good relationship with people, even if they're hostile towards me. I always tried my hardest to be respectful and to keep trying to build that relationship, despite the hostility I was receiving from them initially.
That's a beautiful story, and some irony in there as well. But it's lovely. In fact, that was going to be one of my next questions in terms of who you had support from in terms of the community. But it sounds like you've had help firsthand. Just going back to the running, Lynn, I mean, I'm sort of very fond of sports myself, and we wanted to sort of thread sports into the conversation. Maria talked about her position at the football club, but you're sort of, I think that was more administrative, and she's around sports, but you're sort of actively sort of running and doing sports. What advice or what tips could you give to young girls who perhaps haven't had the opportunity to get into sports, to try something out?
Well, there's been some research done by a number of organisations. I'm also a trustee with Muslim Sports Foundation, and they're quite active in their own research, as well as organisations like Sport England, who found that women in the UK that are from the South Asian Muslim background are the least active in sports. So there's been a lot of funding over the last couple of years to organisations across UK to try to involve more and more South Asian women who are predominantly Muslim to start engaging in sports. And from a psychology background, I know that this particular group is also the least likely to also go to mental health services for help, whether that's Muslim organisations or non-Muslim organisations. And in particular, the Muslim community in general are found to be the least likely to get help for mental health. And my advice is that, you know, sports and exercise, even just walking outside, has massive improvements to mental well-being, that even your whole brain structure changes, and the particular parts of the brain that are responsible for emotions and well-being, for pleasure, these get activated instantaneously. So the moment you start doing something, your brain structure changes, and all those feel good hormones start to get released. So I'd really urge everyone to spend more time with doing some more exercise, and to do it in such a way where my name Jog On, it's come from sometimes Muslim women are afraid that people are going to look at them and judge them, and that comes from both sides of the community. When I first started going out running, I had some people from both, you know, from non-Muslim and Muslim backgrounds, giving me negative responses to me running outside with a hijab on, sort of some race, you know, Islamophobic remarks, but also some judgmental remarks from the Muslim community as well. And I just thought, I'm not going to let them hold me back, because for me, this is about so much more than like losing weight or any of that stuff. For me, it was mental health all the way. It was me feeling spiritual outside, looking at the trees and the squirrels running up the tree, and the, you know, the lakes and the ducks, and that brought me closer to God. So I wasn't going to allow these people and their judgy faces to negatively push me away from the thing that's healing me. So jog on to them. So it's about jog on, but also looking inwardly as well, and the negative thoughts that can easily ruminate in our own minds, and also me being judgmental to other people, thinking they're staring at me, that means they must be thinking such and such. But in fact, they might be thinking, wow, look at her go. Wow, good on her. I need to get out there too. So jog on to all the negative thoughts in my own mind, and, you know, just like really just be. And that's where I talk a lot about connecting the mind and the body, so that they sing the same tune, that your mind and your body connect together and unite, because that's when you can really start to heal. And you grow in your connection to your faith, your spirituality, but also to our own selves as well. There's a lot you can learn about yourself. And when I was training for my first marathon, the London Marathon in 2018, it was the first time I'd spent hours and hours and hours, like I think up to about 6 hours a week running by myself altogether. Got to know myself pretty well. I got to like talk to myself and talk to my little Lynn inside. Sometimes my 5-year-old would pop up, and I'd have a little chat with her, and sometimes my adolescent would pop up, and I'd reassure her and say, it's all right, I've got this, I've got you, we're going to be all right. And that moment that I crossed the line of that first marathon, it felt like every single little piece of myself had finally come together, and we celebrated as one. You know, it was just this amazing moment, really was.
That is spectacular, Lynn. Great story. One thing that you mentioned, actually, that, I mean, one of the reasons why we want to talk about sports and mental health is the low uptake from our Asian communities on both aspects. Do you have any idea why? I mean, I've always struggled with this, and haven't really put my finger on it.
Yeah, well, I recently just got a message from a journalist who's doing her MSc at the moment in sports studies, and she said part of her research, which echoes that of Sport England and also Muslim Sports Foundation, is that one of the main reasons is the barrier is around clothing. And when I had a pop-up in one of the banks that I have my business account with, and I was standing in the old Stratford Mall in London, and I was handing out flyers and such, and I was blown away by the number of Muslim women that came up and said, I didn't even know such a thing as a sports hijab existed. And they said, I can now go to the gym. So they weren't aware of some of the bigger brands and historically some of the other Muslim brands over the years. They just didn't know that existed. And for them, that was the one thing that was stopping them from actually participating in sports. And there's lots of other reasons as well. Again, as I said, mental health, because when you're low in confidence and your self-esteem is low and you're suffering from other like anxiety and depression, you're least likely to then push yourself out of your comfort zone. But it is the one thing that will help you to push that comfort zone further, is to start tiptoeing and start gradually, step by step, taking yourself out of it. And running and sports is just perfect for doing that. And you start to meet new people as well. And I think for Muslim women, sometimes that can be a bit of a fear. For example, I started a Dagenham running club. And when I first started getting serious about my running, and I was really quite nervous and anxious about joining this club, and didn't know what people were gonna think of me. But again, that was all in my own head. That was me having a perception that these guys from Barking and Dagenham, who are, thinking of the borough in a historical way of being, Dagenham being quite a historically racist kind of borough. But actually, that was just all in my own head. I was welcomed with open arms. There have been some curious questions over the years as I've gone into Essex further in and done cross country. And there's been some curious questions asked around what's on my head. So being white, they don't often associate me as being Muslim initially, and they think I've got some really funky UV protection on or something else. And I've had guys in their 50s say, oh, I really like that. Where can I get that from? Because, I get sunburnt on the back of my neck. So that would really help. I go, actually, it's a sports hijab. And oh, wow. So it's been really funny, but it's been great because as I've built my own confidence, I feel able to have them conversations and confidently say, oh, I'm a Muslim, this is a sports hijab. And it's really great because now I can run too, and I don't feel hot in it, and I can have those confident conversations. So confidence and the opposite, low self-esteem, can be one of those barriers. And I think that's where we all come in, our own Muslim community, to be supportive and to build people up to feel like they can achieve this, they can do this, they can go out there and engage and join in and not feel like they're going to be the other and feel like they're going to be welcomed.
Thank you, Lynn. Now, could I just ask, you set up your own running club, but was anything, or are you attached to a masjid that does anything like that?
No, I'm not. In fact, it's not a running club. It's workshops that I do online. I use mindfulness techniques. I've always tried my hardest to be inclusive rather than exclusive. And since I've got into running and I've become a run leader, I haven't really set up a Muslim only group because I feel it's important to be inclusive, to be there and to kind of to join in and to integrate into society and to normalize a Muslim woman who wears hijab in sports and make that normal, because I've been running in like big London races, and someone might spot me in the crowd and go, oh look, that's a hijabi, oh my god, there's a hijabi, but they'll be really happy, like a Muslim waving at me, and that's lovely, and I love that. But I want it to get to a point where it's not a surprise, and it's just like, it's so normal that no one bats an eyelid at it. So that's where I want things to develop. So I want to see more and more Muslim women just giving it a go. And everyone that I've spoken to, everyone just says, my mental health has improved so much, and it just has a ripple effect into all the other areas of your life. You know, if you once someone's done 5 kilometers for the first time, then they'll go to work and they'll believe that they can achieve a different kind of goal at work or at home, and it just stretches you and it keeps stretching you, and you just think, right now I can do 10K, and then it just helps you to develop in all the areas of your life. You meet amazing people who encourage you, and it's wonderful. And like even in races, if you've got your name on, people are going, like for 26 miles in the London Marathon, I had people going, go on Lynn, you can do it, go on Lynn. And that then becomes your internal voice. My internal voice now is like, come on Lynn, you got this, you can do it, come on, just jog on, keep going. And that is my mantra for life, is to just, that sense of self-belief has come from running, you know, and that's an amazing thing to have.
Well, my knees are completely shot, Lynn, but I feel like going for a run right now. I mean, that's really, really, truly inspirational. I mean, initially I thought, my feeling was that Muslim girls had, you know, issues maybe with team sports because, you know, it was maybe not fully inclusive and sort of jolly hockey sticks and that type of thing. But maybe just something as simple as the dress code. So, you know, thank you for sort of taking that on and creating sportswear that our Muslim girls can wear. I'm just going to pass you over, Lynn, to Brother Khalik and see if we can get some comments and questions from the floor. Okay, Jazakallah khair.
Wow, that was truly inspirational. Mashallah, mashallah, you've done so many fantastic things there, and so much going on in your life. I love Jog On, by the way. I mean, it sort of brings back so many memories growing up of comedies where it's been used, and it's the positive and the negative of it is fantastic, I think. And I think often we don't realize, you know, you can take a negative word and make it really, really positive, and you've done that so really well. Yeah, fantastic. And what a great thing that you worked out the sports hijab thing. My wife started wearing hijab after we got married, and the one that you mentioned is not that great, so I think she's probably going to be looking forward to getting one of yours. So that's really, really great news. So we have got a couple of questions. There's Saeed, who's had his hand very patiently raised. He's one of our younger listeners. I'm going to ask him to unmute and ask the first question, and I'm going to ask some of the others that are waiting there quite patiently.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. So I have a question here. When you were growing up, you played so many sports. Which was your favorite?
Well, when I was little and I was growing up, it was actually football. And I when I was in year 6, the football teacher said that girls weren't allowed to play football with the boys, but I was way better than a lot of the boys in the team, and I knew it. So I bugged him and I bugged him and I bugged him until finally he let me and one other girl join the school football team. And it was just an amazing moment for me. And I really loved that. And you know, my mum even says she always remembers my face, that really serious, like, you know, face that you pull when you're really into it. And my brothers, they used to take me to watch Portsmouth Football Club play as well, and that was good fun. They're not doing very well anymore, unfortunately. Do you like football?
Yeah.
So I'm a big Liverpool supporter, Lynn.
I was asking Usman. Is it Usman?
Yeah, I know you were. I just thought I'd get that in there.
Who does Usman support?
Saeed.
Oh, Saeed, sorry.
Saeed, who do you support?
One of my favorite sports. Like, I just had one more question here. So, which football do you support?
Still got to be Portsmouth, I'm afraid. And I'm just hoping that they'll finally move up a little bit and might get back in the leagues. Yeah, so it's got to be Portsmouth, where I was born. Yeah, play up Pompey.
Fantastic. Thank you, Saeed. Thank you for your lovely question. I'm going to move over, I think, first of all to Avais again, because I think he's got a question. And then there's a couple of the sisters who've got some questions. Avais, if you can unmute, please.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, Lynn. Thank you for talking with us. I've just got one question for you. Do you have a role model in the sporting world, and who is that if you do have one?
Got lots of role models. Starting at a grassroots level, when I joined my running club, there's a guy in his 70s called Sam. And he was 74 when I met him, and he just started running when he was 69, and he had lots of health problems like high blood pressure and diabetes and lots of other things that Asian guys are prone to get. And his doctor said, if you don't start doing some exercise, you're going to be in a very unhealthy way. And so he started running, and when he was age 70, he did his first marathon, like full 26 miles. And since then, he's done about 5 or 6 more. And he is one of my role models, because at that time, I'd only run around 10 kilometers, which is about 6 miles. And to look at him and think, wow, if he can do that, if he can turn his whole life around at age 70, that's just amazing. And that for me, and he is still my role model today. And also at another grassroots level, there's Naila Butt, who's in her 50s, a Muslim lady up Leicester, I think it is. And she's really amazing as well. And she's run about 2 marathons, and she does kickboxing, and she's a foster mom, and she does loads of stuff and lots of fundraising for charity. She's really good, really, really good. And then if you're looking at the celebrities, obviously Mo Farah is just brilliant, isn't he? The Liverpool guy, the other Mo, and I like Ronaldo as well. Ronaldo, because he's really, really charitable, and he gives a lot of money to charity, and he does lots of stuff for kids, and he's just such a really nice person. Yeah.
I mean, I think you've mentioned some really amazing names there. I think Armour is really happy that you mentioned one of his favourite Liverpool players, I'm sure. But no, I agree. Ronaldo's done so much, and he really is an inspirational guy. But it's really most interesting there is that actually you mentioned somebody that most people wouldn't necessarily think as being somebody who's quite inspirational, somebody who really rose to the occasion and pushed themselves beyond. And I think that's really, really a really great person to have a role model. There's some more questions here. I'm gonna let the others ask the questions before I ask some more questions. So I think it was Kay, if you're there, I think you had some questions and some comments. I think it's Kay Shah. If you'd like to unmute your line and feel free to ask a question.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I was going to say, when are you going to train me, Lynn? Because I can only run after the ice cream van.
Yeah, I see. Kay's one of those people that always say, I can't run. And I say, even you, Amir, with your dodgy knees, everybody can run. Everyone can do it. Obviously, if you have 2 legs and you can run. Well, not even 2 legs. When you look at the Olympians as well, it's all about connecting your mind and your body. Sometimes your mind will say, no, I can't, but your legs certainly can. But it's about your belief. It's about your spirituality as well. And connecting your breathing. When I first started running competitively and I was doing races, especially cross country, where it's lots of uphill and muddy, slippery terrain, I used to associate my heart pounding with panic attacks that I'd had in the past. And it made me feel scared and afraid, and I'd just stop, and I'd start walking. But it was just through reconditioning my mind and rethinking that actually my heart pounding is not a sign of fear. It's a sign of power. And using kind of neuro-linguistic programming to really reframe my thought process around that. And when you click the hearts button on Facebook and all these hearts go like that, So I would actually visualize my heart doing that and all these hearts coming out. And I'm actually embracing my heart and the fact that it's pumping, and also remembering God and thanking him for my heart and being really grateful, and sort of incorporating my whole spirituality around it, and just slowing down a bit, getting to know my breath and my breathing, and yeah, just being in touch with all the different parts of myself and telling myself I can do it, believing in myself. So you can do it, Kay. Everyone can, and you just have to start off a little bit slow and believe in yourself.
That's really inspirational. Thank you so much. And I think the comments are coming in really talking about how positive the way you're speaking is, especially to the sisters. I think, there's lots of go Lynns there and really inspirational. I think some are asking, can you run a squad for the women soon in the area? There's quite a lot of real positive comments there. And there's one other question actually that came anonymously. So I'm just going to read it out. I think it was for all the panel, to be honest with you, which was asked, but I'm going to start with yourself. It says, for strong girls, it's easy for them to, to worm their way to success. But what would you advise to the recessive girls for how to take grip of their introvert behavior?
I've always felt that society looks down upon introverts and someone who's shy. And I think if there's a difference between someone who's quietly confident and someone who is low in self-esteem, that the two are very different things. I think it's about knowing yourself and working on yourself. And we all have skills. Not everybody is a public speaker or, out there. Other people have, we all have talents and passions and dreams. And I feel it's parents' responsibilities, mostly to really highlight the things that children are good at, rather than a constant comparison to other children that might be slightly better at other things. I think we've all got specific skills that are God-given, and it's about tapping into them and being true to yourself. I think, creative people are always neglected and seen as, that kind, quiet and sort of, but actually they have so much to bring to society. Those that are reflective and those that are thinkers are just as important as those that are speakers. So it's about just really, allowing every child to be themselves and true to themselves, and to be passionate about the things that they are naturally good at.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with you. I mean, I think in some respects it is quite a responsibility now to get the new generation quite involved, or even, like you said, try to blossom those who might not necessarily be they might be introvert, but they're not, not like confidence. So they're, shy in the way in which they approach that. So I think, which moves it swiftly onto my own question, actually, that, you mentioned that you'd been sort of around quite a number of the different cultures, really. I mean, you said that your partner's Pakistani, and then you work quite closely with the Bangladeshi community, albeit in some really difficult circumstances. But do you think that the Eastern societies at the moment, they don't do it as well as, say, the West, in terms of encouraging to get involved in sports, especially because of the the difficulties of wearing, say, hijab and being conservative in the way you dress, especially in the sports industry? Do you think that there is a differential there, and do you think we can learn a bit more and do things a bit better?
Yeah, it's a tricky question, because UK's Muslim populations are so diverse, and if you go to Birmingham, the Muslim culture there is going to be entirely different to the same, say South Asian in Birmingham compared to South Asian somewhere else. Is very different. So it's really difficult to say. In my experience, I found that people are missing out a lot by not integrating with non-Muslims. They might be, and for most sports are played in same sex. So most sports. So some Muslim families are looking for Muslim only girls teams. And I feel like both non-Muslims and Muslims are missing out by not playing together. It's a place where barriers are broken down. Sports, I mean, look at what happened on, was it Christmas Day, when, you know, during the war, when two sides that were warring with each other, they played football, and you know, there was a ceasefire and they played football and everyone got on and everyone was shaking hands, and then the next day it went back to war. Now that's an extreme example, but when you get down to community level, it breaks down barriers. It breaks down economic barriers, cultural barriers. When you're on that pitch or you're, you know, running out in a race, everyone's there for a common purpose, common goal, and everyone has a common love, and that's how you get to know people, and that's how you really start to break down stereotypes.
No, I agree. I think that's really a great point. And I think that, you know, now actually a lot of the schools are really progressing in this area. And like you said, most sports are played single sex, and it allows more and more of us to get involved. But I think we do certainly still need to do more. I think Keisha's got her hand up. So I'm going to ask her to unmute and ask her question.
There's an interesting point that you raised earlier, just about if Eastern women are lagging behind, I suppose, compared to our Western counterparts. And I would, as a Bangladeshi woman, I would say yes, definitely, because I think there is a lot of cultural baggage that comes with it. And the idea that women who are going into sports are somehow kind of freeing themselves from that cultural baggage has a stigma attached to it. I myself, I mean, I made a joke about, you know, I only run after the ice cream ban, and most likely I do, but years ago I started boxing and I was the only Bangladeshi woman in my gym to box, and then I had to move from my area and go to a different area where it was just white people boxing, and I found myself more accepted in that gym, whereas in the gym that I was attending, I found like the Asian guys were looking down on me, or, you know, making comments at me and, you know, saying, oh, you box like a girl and things like that. And then from boxing I moved on to Muay Thai, which I did for about 5 years. And even then I found, you know, when I was sparring with the guys, they literally wanted to beat me up in the ring. And it just felt like, you know, they found it very, it's like a, how can I say, like a ego thing for them, you know, to be sparring with a petite Bangladeshi woman who could possibly be a little bit better than them, maybe not in terms of strength, but in terms of speed. And, you know, those kind of things does put Asian women, you know, it kind of puts them off a lot. I mean, I had the confidence to do it. I grew up with brothers who constantly beat me up when I was growing up. So that kind of helped me, you know, deal with guys in my life. But a lot of Bangladeshi women don't have that kind of, you know, support, or, you know, the cultural baggage that comes with it, the idea that women are moving away from being Asian, you know, integrating too much into Western society. And myself, and Lynn knows me, Lynn and I have known each other for over 20 years now, and she knows that, you know, even though I don't, you know, look Muslim, my principles are still the same. And it's that stigma, you know, if you don't look Muslim enough, then there is the other stigma attached to it as well. So, you know, good on Lynn, you know, you're promoting the hijab, and that women like us who don't wear the hijab, you know, we aspire to that. And, you know, inshallah, we want to wear it one day. And things like what Lynn's doing, I think it's really putting forward that Muslim women can come out of, you know, these cultures and go for something, wear the suitable attire and be involved in sport. So well done, Lynn. You know, you're really inspiring a lot of women out there. And unfortunately, people from my culture, I can only speak for my culture, unfortunately, but, you know, people in my culture really do look down on women in sport. You know, there's that little attack, you know, stigma, like I said, you know, we're moving away from being Bangladeshi, or we're moving away from being Muslim, but looking at, you know, women in the Prophet's time, you know, peace be upon him, you know, women did a lot of things that wasn't attached to culture or anything like that. You know, they participated in things that you can as Muslim women. And I think we need to just move away from the idea like we're becoming too westernized. I don't think there is a concept as being westernized. You have to integrate, and our religion is such a beautiful thing. You know, it crosses cultures, it crosses barriers, it crosses everything. and you can
I totally
implement
agree.
things,
I
you
think I
know.
totally agree with what you're saying there. Sorry to interrupt you there, but yeah, I totally agree. I think, and I'm going to let Lynn comment on that. But I think that's really, I think you've hit the nail on the head, where there is a significant difference between, I think, culture and Islam. And you know, if you look at what is allowed in Islam and what cultures have portrayed as not being allowed, there's a big difference there. And you know, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was so many, and I think we're going to hear more about that hopefully in the coming conversation. But there's so many times where you know, where women were you know, really shoulder to shoulder in so many occasions. But and I think that is quite interesting that you've mentioned that. Sorry, Lynn, I didn't want to you know, take any of your time, but please, if you want to comment on that.
Well, you know, I think Kay said it really well, but I think what we need to remember is that God's created us and we have this brain, and if you just study the effects of exercise on the brain, you'll be blown away how it can, it's a preventative for Alzheimer's and memory loss, and you know, it helps you to be more creative. The frontal part of the, you know, the frontal lobe, where your decision making process becomes improved. The parts of the brain for emotion and spirituality. In fact, if you were to put a scanner on your head whilst doing exercise, all these parts of the brain just start lighting up immediately. You know, your emotional response and your hippocampus, where all your memories and all your kind of artistic and creative parts of the brain, everything just lights up. So this is how God's created us, to be active, not to sit and, you know, to talk and just to sit around. He's created us to be active beings. And I know that when I'm out running and a butterfly goes past me, I'm just, wow, look at the colors, wow. And I just think of God. It's, for me, it's Iman boosting. So if anyone ever says to me, well, you're a Muslim woman, you're wearing hijab, you shouldn't be doing that, it's just jog on, because it's bringing me closer to God. How can it be a bad thing? How can it be? You know, even doing my salah, when I pray, all those stretches, they're all yoga moves. You know, they're yoga moves, putting your head on the ground and grounding yourself. And you think about, we are made from the earth. You know, we are earth and we are water. That is what we're made up of. And our body needs to do these things to be able to thrive. So it's all, for me, it's all about your mind, your body, your spirituality all coming together. And that can be anyhow, whether it's on a bicycle, if it's on a football pitch or rugby, tennis, whatever it is. It's a place where you can meet all your needs, social, spiritual, everything. It ticks all boxes for me.
Totally, I totally agree with you. And actually, it's funny you mentioned the salah as being sort of yoga moves. I think I heard somewhere that actually when you perform salah, you know, every single muscle in your body actually does make a movement, which is inspirational, mashallah. No, thank you so much for answering all of those questions, and thank you for everybody for their comments. So I think I'm going to hand you back over to Amr, but it was fantastic, and you know, thank you for inspiring everyone, and looking forward to seeing or you showcasing some of your hijabs and hearing about the website and wherever everyone can, you know, get a hold of them.
They can join me for one of my mind and body mindfulness runs. So I talk whilst running live. You join in, you come outside with me, and we talk about using all your senses and your body mindfulness to be able to work through anxiety and stress. So check out the website and you can sign up to a workshop as well. Jogon.org.
Fantastic,
so Lynn, Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for your input today. The energy was literally coming through the screen. It was a real buzz. So thanks so much for that. If you could perhaps put your details in the chat for Jog On, and also for the work you do with the workshops, etc. That would be amazing. I think we've had quite a lot of interest and a lot of feedback from the participants. So again, Jazakallah khair for joining, and stay in touch. I'd love to meet up again and perhaps explore the avenues of what you do. So, Jazakallah khair, assalamu alaikum. If you'd like to stay on the call, that's fine. Maybe speak again towards the end. Okay, so, wow, what an evening. Our final guest, who's been patiently waiting for quite a long time now, is Dr. Fulla Lamar. I don't know why I said that in a French accent, but is an external supervisor at the University of Bolton. She previously worked as a research associate at the University of Nottingham, and then as a lecturer and course leader for MA programs at the Markfield Institute of Higher Education. Fulla has a keen interest in methodological issues and the theoretical underpinnings of research. Fulla is adequately qualified for Sheikhs breaks with her BA, 2 MAs and PhD in Islamic Studies and Education, respectively. She's a fellow of the Higher Education Academy and a member of the British Educational Research Association and the British Association for Islamic Studies. So, Dr. Fulla, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much for waiting all this time. Hopefully you've enjoyed the conversation so far. Certainly I have. It's been very interesting and as we hoped, inspirational. So Dr. Fulla, can you start by just giving us some background into what you do day to day and your journey to the role you're in?
First, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everyone who's attending. Inspirational accounts from Maria and Lynn. I was really listening, and I have been inspired myself, you know, from Lynn's story and journey. For my journey is a bit different. So I came from Algeria originally, and then settled here in England now since the 90s. In Algeria, I came, you were discussing the introverts and the shy people. Actually, I was really shy and was really kind into my bubble during my primary school. Yes, I was doing well academically, but in terms of public speaking, I was not, I was too shy. Then starting getting out of the shell during my secondary and during my college, I started taking leadership role in my class. So starting to actually take the position of the teacher and teach the class. It was a secular system, so it's a mix of boys and girls since primary till university. I got the baccalaureate for sciences, but I decided to go to the Islamic University in Algeria. It was a buzz at the time, and also we were, you know, I put on the hijab during my secondary school. I decided at the age of 13 to wear the hijab. My parents were too worried that if I put on the hijab, actually I'll be bullied, and that will have consequences on me and my confidence. But I came to a point when I decided whether I wear the hijab. I was in year 8, or I'm not going to school. So either you choose now. And then they said, are you sure? Is that your final decision? I said, yes. So that was my journey with the hijab in year 8 when I decided to put, you know, in Algeria at the time was lots of bullying if you wear the hijab. It was the 80s. As a child, you have a lot to bear. You cannot pray at school, and they find you praying, then you will have corporal punishment at times. You cannot pray, and the hijab, you have lots of kind of a hassle sometimes with the hijab. So it's not an easy go to decide to wear the hijab at the time. Later on in the 90s becomes normalized, and now it's very normalized in Algeria. But at the time it was a challenge to wear it. At the university, you know, different things pushed me to go to the Islamic University in Algeria. One of them was just to feel comfortable I can pray during my studies, that my religious needs are met. And is actually really, when I came here and I find that kind of debate which I went through the system of the Muslim country, majority of Muslim country, majority of Muslims in Algeria. So that was kind of a contrast. At the Islamic University, straight away, I became a student representative, one of the students' representatives at the university, very active in the student union. And I led the mosque for the masjid for the girls' campus. It was around 2,000 girls in the campus. So the masjid was a hub for scholarship. I was very exposed during that time to scholars, to training, to public speaking, to leading, to organizing activities. So those skills actually helped me now in my work. During that was during my undergrad, but really helped me now. And also the exposure. One of the things that helped me to get out of that kind of a shyness and introvert, I think looking for role models. I was looking for the seerah. I looked for Khadija radiallahu anha. I looked for Aisha radiallahu anha. I said, look, these are women, actually, they had their kind of personalities and confidence, and yet they have their religiosity as well. My shyness was nothing to do with my religion. It was something to do with my personality as a child. But then my religion helped me, you know, becoming more and reading about the seerah actually helped me to deal with that and to develop skills when I need them towards the leading roles. I remember once one of my relatives asked me to say, look, he brought me a cassette at the time, we're old generation, you know, that old cassette. And he said, look, this lady, she's a leadership, you know, a leader, and these are the ladies. And I need you to give that speech in that kind of a confidence. So I recorded myself and then listened to myself a few times. And that's how I've developed those skills of kind of interacting. I came to Britain and I got married. My husband was doing his PhD at the University of Nottingham. So straight away finished my degree in Algeria and I came. One of the conditions was, it was not a condition, it was actually because I believe women, as a Muslim woman, I believed since then I need to have a role in society. I need to be more than I am. Key is being a mother. I am a mother of 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. I'm proud of that. It's my joy to be a mother. But I always believe that I have my role is more than just the home. I have a role that I have to fulfill in my communities, different communities, Muslim and non-Muslim communities. So then at the time in Algeria, I had to discuss with my husband before being a husband. You know, this is my view. Whether what is the view of a woman in your means means this is not a condition. This is just to see your perspective of women's role. And I'm really interested to finish my postgrad till the end. Whether this is something you believe in or something you don't like. Because that's how we negotiate expectations. This is not a condition. This is something to know how I think. And he said, I'm absolutely fine with your roles in the community and absolutely fine with your, especially, you know, your postgrad studies. I came here in England. It was a big challenge. No English, basic English. What's my name? You know, what do? You know, the English of the school. Which you don't find much useful in here. English was my 3rd language because in Algeria I have Arabic first language, French 2nd language. So I had to struggle with English. I went to English classes. I learned there. I met, it was my first time to meet the social sisters from the South Asian community. It was my first time to taste curry. So I learned how to cook curry, and I learned how other kind of skills during the English class. It was so kind of exposure to different aspects, different cultures, that gives me as well another dimension for I need to learn languages. I joined the college at the time for teacher training. I joined for sewing, different classes. My children were very young, babies, so I couldn't do much at the university. Then I decided, went abroad for some work for Saudi Arabia. I found it suffocating. For 3 years, I came back. That's not how, you know, I need to do something. So we came back and I was working in a Dar al-Ulum for girls for 5 years as head of Department for Islamic Studies. And I've seen that is actually my understanding of the role of the women. They need knowledge and they need education. They need to develop skills and they need to be exposed as well to activities, to skills, to scholarship. From there, I really did the Open University. I moved on to MA Islamic Studies and then went to University of Nottingham to finish my PhD. During that, I stopped my work at the Dar al-Ulum and I was doing different other activities. Doing my PhD, I was the liaison for the Forum of International Networking in Education for the University of Nottingham School of Education. I graduated in 2012. In 2016, I got the Imams, British Imams and Scholars Contributions Award, BISCA, for women's contribution to scholarship. I joined the Markfield Institute of Higher Education and led the program of the MEd Education and the MA Islamic Studies. For 3 years, I led the MEd for Islamic Education. I was teaching and lecturing for both Islamic Studies and Education and Research Methods. I worked as a research associate at the University of Nottingham. So this is, my leadership was in the community as well. I led the masjids since my week 1 in England. I joined the closest masjid. A very short time, 2 months, the sisters insisted that I need to lead that kind of activities in the masjid. And since then, I was involved with the Islamic Society, involved with the masjids. And this is my road, really.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Fuller. 2 or 3 things that stood out for me when you were talking. One is that you mentioned that you were very shy, but you've yet progressed to many roles of leadership, and you talked about personality. What pushed you to sort of break through that shyness?
It was mainly my belief that as a Muslim woman, I need to have a role, and this role it needs to be in the broad aspect and in society. So that really means I had to take leading role, and that's my true belief inside. Speaking of inspired by the Seerah mainly, I read for different. I was really into. In my house with academia, so the books was all around. So reading for Bint al-Shati, reading for Zainab al-Ghazali at the time as a teenager, and see what she went through in Egypt, and then reading the seerah of the companions, I felt that I have to do something about my shyness. And I'm not saying that all people have to do that. This is just I'm narrating my journey, really. So I got out of that by the college. That was then I was the kind of representative and leading that. I think developing skills for women, especially this is for leadership in society. One thing is education, and second thing is developing the skills, including the presentation skills, including communication skills. So I think these are which I believed and pushed me to work hard to get out of my comfort zone.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, you've clearly worked very, very hard. The other thing that you mentioned, that you found it suffocating in Saudi Arabia. What happened there?
It was very hard. It was the end of 90s. So it was very hard for women as a woman to get out of the house. Driving was not there. Since my childhood, I was always out and about. So that was, I had to stay at home. I have to be dependent completely on my husband. He's at work. I found it very hard. My children were young, yes, so I enjoyed the motherhood being in there, but I had to do some activities. I tried to work. I found work in some international schools, but it was hard, the transportation and being dependent completely on my husband. That was just a big hassle. I couldn't finish my studies. I was really looking forward to study, to do my PhD. I applied for Jamiat al-Qura in there. I was in Jeddah. I just called them and they said, you are not Saudi, you cannot do it. And I was shocked, why? And I can't do it. And said, you need to have a scholarship from your home country university. That was a shock because at the time in Algeria was in a turmoil in the 90s. So no way I can get that. that's why I came back to England to complete my, you know, to follow my dreams, really.
Mashallah, mashallah. And the other point you mentioned, which I think was interesting, because my daughter's considering languages as perhaps a route forward. I mean, you've obviously come with Arabic and French and struggled really to get the English, and mashallah, you're fluent now. But do you find that that's kind of opened doors for you? And
yeah, for sure. I think if you have a second language already, the French helped me to pick up with English. And so that helps. The more languages, I believe in learning more languages, and I encourage the youth, and whether male or female, actually to learn more languages that they could, because not only they give you the access to to express yourself, is also to understand others, to communicate with different cultures, to be exposed. To learn from every language will just open another door for you. And I hope, you know, one of the languages I really love is Urdu, and I always loved that I would have learned that language. Really poetic and you know, something, you know, yeah. More languages, I think, they don't only give you the language, it gives you another process of thinking, and that brings kind of creativity with it as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sadly, my Urdu is terrible, but my French is okay. Let's see. But so another question I had for you, Dr. Fuller, obviously as a scholar, can you touch upon sort of the heritage within Islam for, you know, women in leadership, and why perhaps, you know, that seems to have slackened a little bit, and perhaps why there's a stigma attached with leadership for ladies in Islam?
Yeah, so this is something we, as a community, we have issues with women leadership for different reasons. There are social factors, there are religious factors, there are how to understand our religion, and how do we perceive the role of women within within our religion, how to read the seerah, how to read the hadith of Rasulullah. There are some cultural factors that may even contradict with the religious principles. So if we go to the religious factor, and if we read, means there are different ways. Some people they read it and they take that women should stay at home and shouldn't do anything else except looking after their children, which is great job to look after the children. I think you are bringing the best and most noble job is to look for you know, bringing up a healthy human being. So I have nothing to do, and I see that is great and noble job. But I think reading the seerah, as a Muslim woman, we have more than just Khadija radiallahu anha was doing more than just looking after her children at home. She took the role of leadership in supporting the Prophet ﷺ from day one. She took the initiative to take him to Waraq ibn Nawfal. She took the initiative to support the da'wah financially, and this is agency of Khadija radiallahu anha against the odds of the Qurayshi society at the time. And obviously she was bearing the consequences of that opposition to her own community for the principles that she was believing in. She was, you know, during the boycott, and after the, you know, the boycott, till her death after the boycott. So if I see that role of Khadija radiallahu anha as a confident and as a wise and as a woman who believed in her role in the family and also in society towards the responsibility towards her community, that inspired me so much. Looking for the migration, the first migration to Al-Habasha, I reflected a lot upon the women who left Mecca during that time, 7th century, and went to another culture, another society, because they really believed in their principles and how much sacrifice they made. Also, I looked for Bay'at al-Aqaba, the first pledge when they gave to the Rasul the second one, Al-Emaan, and the women who attended in that bay'ah as well, how they, you know, it was risky. So these women, if I look for a Nusayba or look for Salama radiallahu anha, for example, and how she suffered for the principles she believed in, how she was separated from her own child, from her own husband. Her husband was in Medina. She was kept in Mecca. Those ladies, they believed, they had confidence, and they believed in their principles, but they believed that their role they can transform. They knew their talents, and they were ready to develop those talents. So we see, for instance, in Medina, Aisha radiallahu anha, if I take her as a model of the life of the house of the Rasul, or if I take Fatima, or even if I take Zainab radiallahu anha, how these ladies in the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam were nurtured with love, nurtured with knowledge, and nurtured with care, nurtured with agency. They were given the space to grow for themselves as confident. They were not broken. You see, Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to ask the Prophet ﷺ questions, and when she's not convinced, she would ask. Fatima radiallahu anha, if we read her personality, she was a confident lady. If we look for Zainab radiallahu anha and how she gave asylum to her husband in Medina, I always contemplate on that, and how she was in the masjid, and without prior consultation with the Prophet ﷺ, her dad, who's the leader and the prophet in the community, yet she found herself confident enough to come in the masjid and to announce that she's giving protection to her husband. So that shows those personalities. Beyond that kind of limited incidents, I always reflect on education, because I am in education. What education should we provide to the youth that the Prophet provided to those women, that they could actually be who they were, and they could even stand up for their principles, even with the Prophet ﷺ, like Zainab. She just announced her protection to her husband in the masjid without fear. Like Aisha radiallahu anha in Hadith al-Ifk, when her honor, when she was accused, but when the verses were revealed, and when her parents asked her to thank the Prophet ﷺ, she said, "No, I only thank Allah. Is the one means who cleared my honor." And that moment, I just think, that is, she was not rebellious in any way or being ungrateful to the Prophet ﷺ. She was the lady that the Prophet ﷺ nurtured. She was a lady, she stood up for her principle, that Allah Azza wa Jal revealed those verses to honor me. So I thank him. So these kind of role models, we need to reread them. We need to see what is Islamic education about women. What do we want from women in society? The women of the life of Rasulullah, they were nurtured as leaders in knowledge, like Aisha radiallahu anha. They were encouraged to read and write. If I see how the copy of the Quran was kept, if I imagine the copy of the Quran, the only checked copy of the Quran was kept in the trust of Hafsa radiallahu anha after the assassination of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anha and his istishhad. So if I see that a whole community knew that Hafsa was entrusted by the copy of the Quran, and this is a leadership, this is a crucial kind of a role in there. We need to contemplate on that. We have also in kind of medicine, we know Shifa radiallahu anha, she was taking during when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was wounded in Ghazwat al-Khandaq, the Prophet ﷺ placed tents for him in the masjid, and he asked Rufayda to look after him. Also, we find other incidents when the Sahabiyat used to go into the to look after the wounded and to care in medical ways. We know incident of Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, when Salama, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, gave the crucial consultation to the Prophet ﷺ when he came and asked her in Ghazwat al-Qadha, when after Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, the Qurayshis did not let them go and do their Umrah as they prepared. And then they decided to go back to Medina. They agreed to go back to Medina. And therefore they will not do Umrah that year and will come back next year and do makeup for Umrah, qada for that Umrah. So they had to end their ihram, and they have to shave and slaughter their animals and go back to Medina. Well, the companions found it very difficult to decide to end up their Umrah and to shave their heads and just to go back to Medina. All that journey, sacrifice, they felt humiliated and everything with the conditions of the Treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah. So they didn't follow the order of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ went into his house and he asked, he just say that people, they're not following. And Salama said, why don't you go out and ask someone to shave your head and to slaughter your animals, and they will follow. And this is what happened. He just went out and he took her consultation. So we see here the gender. Even though he was the prophet, he was the leader, he was nurturing the women at home as equals. He was asking them for their consultation and taking that consultation seriously. And that's the leadership for Salama radiallahu anha, that to give that consultation to the top leadership, not only in a leadership, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think we need to really think about these kind of role models. Asma bint Abi Sakan. There are many examples I can give from the seerah of the Prophet.
Jazakallah khair. I mean, clearly, Dr. Fuller, there's a precedent throughout history for Muslim women in leadership. But what can we do to inspire our young girls, our sisters, to take leadership roles when the opportunity arrives?
Here, I think we need to really, I would ask the sisters to understand themselves, because starting to understand my skills, my passion, my strengths, my weaknesses, and how can I work with them would be the start. As a community, I think we need to look for the education of the girls, what type of education we provide them, whether in the state sector or whether in the Islamic schooling, which is thriving and growing. Also, what skills are we looking? What roles in the house and in the family, different circles, and in the society at large, that we see women to take roles and see how to prepare them for those roles. Part of this preparation is to expose them to the real challenges of society by overprotecting. I don't think it will help. I think it will just hinder developing their own themselves how to be and to take their roles. So exposure to scholarship, developing skills, organizing activities at not only at schools, in the the centers, in the masjids, in the different organizations that these ladies are going through, like Lynn and Sister Maria. They were giving there's kind of examples in there. Also organizations, there are challenges, I have to say, and if you are, it's not all rosy. There are challenges of conflicts as a woman, as a mother. For instance, I have children. I went through those kind of decisions when we say, how can I balance the workload between my house and my and outside. I think the sisters, they need support from that. Support is not a favor. We support each other in life. So support from the family, whether parents or whether husband later on, or whether we need that circle of support in the family for them to grow and to find themselves in their roles. In the organizations, I think there are many problems for facing women in general, not only Muslim women, when they go to leadership roles. And I think as a minority, and as gender, as a Muslim woman, especially visible, if you go, there are issues, as I say, as women generally, like equal pay, like training opportunities and organizations. If they are more Muslim organizations, I would say, please, when we think about equality, is not only to chant about it, is actually to demonstrate it. So we cannot assume, look, these are brothers looking after the family, and this sister, she is somebody, as if her time is cheap. No, her time is, as important and valuable as the time of the brother. So the equal pay, the training opportunities, if the organizations give more opportunities to male than female, or schools give more opportunities to male than females to grow and to develop skills, this is kind of discrimination. We should be very aware and critical about that. Recognize the glass ceiling sometimes we put for ourselves before others put for us. I met sisters say, I cannot do that. Why? Because I am a Muslim woman, I am wearing hijab, and I will not be allowed to do that. Why not? Who said so? You know, sometimes we also impose glass ceiling on our, and barriers on our potential. So I would ask also as I ask organizations to have high expectations of women in their roles in their organizations, and nurture and open opportunities to develop their skills, because without skills they don't feel the confidence, they don't have the confidence to lead. Also, the sisters, don't be scared. Means you have the potential, you have the, just look for what I can develop and work on that. Also to recognize, actually, we have gender discrimination. We do have. There is gender discrimination, generally, but also we have in Muslim communities, we have in Muslim organizations, gender discrimination. So there is a challenge there, and as I urge those organizations to be critical and to develop that and enhance the environment to nurture those women in confidence and in leadership, I also call upon the sisters to also be true to themselves and their potential, and to to recognize and to be confident. I need that. I can do it. I can work on it. I will have a plan. I will see the opportunities, and don't be let down by the expectations of others. There are barriers of stereotyping that a sister cannot do that, stereotyping that, this is, I'm not talking about halal and haram, I'm talking even about, you cannot do that, you cannot be in that position. Who said so? I cannot be leading a department in the university. Why not? Who said I cannot do it? There are lots of challenges, I have to say. It's a difficult road, but I have to say to the sisters, you can plan it, work on it, see what skills are needed, what help and support is needed. I urge, brothers who are the husbands, many sisters I know, they stopped their education because they struggled at home and they couldn't find the help I found with in my house with my husband. So I urge them really to look, because these are potential to the community. These are also, this mother is a role model to her own children. So balancing that between the house and also to lead her later on, she would, this is her mental health as well, feeling a bit, she fulfills something for herself and her community. Overcome the preconceptions and the low expectations of ourselves in the family, in the community, the beliefs that we hold that we cannot do it, the understanding of women's role in society. We need to revise that and give the role models and give the, like we are doing now, this program. Also look for developing skills. It's not only about the halaqa of memorizing the Quran, sorry, or the hadith is also what skills are these women need, and do these women need, and how can we develop them. Internal motivation for the sisters. I think this is so important, because the journey is challenging and is long, and as sisters now, if we look for Sister Lynn, for instance, and all the challenges that she faced in her journey, I think one thing I can notice in her journey was the internal motivation. So the internal motivation, the desire to succeed, the desire to work and try to find alternatives, be flexible. Sometimes flexibility is very important, and seek, seize the opportunities that will help as well. The lifestyle conflicts, as I say, sometimes they are great barrier on that journey. So what can we do as a community? I would say as a family, as a community, as a family support, and as a self, from the self, believe in yourself, identify your passion, plan for it, and believe in your potential. As a community, we need to give our women more, trust them more, I think. I believe really, and appreciate their potential and the skills they have, because sometimes it's a sad fact. Sometimes you find you can develop your skills much better in the mainstream than if you are in a Muslim organization. There are some aspects that you find better in a Muslim organization. I have to say, you are feeling more at home, and this by itself has its positive impact on you, but also the other side, you might not be as challenged or appreciated or as valued or as open to opportunities as in some other organizations. That's why I say to the sisters, please look for the opportunities and don't restrict yourself in certain spaces.
Jazakallah khair. So two words that stood out there, Dr. Fuller. One was discrimination, one was integration. So you mentioned discrimination. I mean, had you faced yourself within the Muslim Islamic sphere discrimination in getting to your leadership role?
Well, I have to say there are opportunities, and there are people who will support you even within a Muslim community, I have to say. And one of the great supporters, I have to say, the late Professor Ata'ullah Siddiq, I have to mention him, rahimahullah. I learned so much from him, and I, is someone that is supporting everyone around, and I have to appreciate his contribution to my journey of growth and leadership. And I used always to go back to him and ask, and was kind of a real mentor to, mentoring me through 3 years. So that was important. We need in Muslim organizations these people who help you and support you. So there is support in there inside in many Muslim organizations, but also there are in generally, I worked in so many Muslim organizations. There are hurdles, yes, there are, and there are issues, serious issues that need to be tackled. There is underestimation of talents. There is discrimination of opportunities between male and female. There are hurdles on the kind of challenges that for you more as a woman. There are stereotypes. There are issues that we really need to tackle them, and I've seen them in many organizations, and I think I'm so clear we have to discuss them if we really want to do better.
Exactly. The other word you mentioned, integration, and how perhaps that should be encouraged to develop our own skills, but also to show people of other faiths, non-Muslims, that we belong in that role.
Obviously, I am a strong supporter of being in contact with the wider society, and it's a responsibility. It's something, even if we are so dedicated to our deen and our religion, this society we are living, it's our, you know, this society is our society, and these people are our people. There are different circles, but this is one of the circles. They are our neighbors, they are our co-workers, and there are, we have responsibility, and we cannot say we hide in our comfort zones and say we have nothing to do with the wider community. No, we have lots to do, not only with the Muslim community. We have the responsibilities in the Muslim community, which are specific to the Muslim community. We have responsibilities towards the wider community in different, you know, aspects. We have to contribute. It's not only to make them Muslims, it's actually have rights upon us as our communities. And we find the prophets and saying to their people, "Oh, our people, my people." Now, so I think, yeah, it's more than integration. I think we are one family. And this family, like the extended, you have the parents, and you have the brothers and sisters, and you have the uncles, and you have responsibility, and you know, all those people, they have responsibility upon you as member, and you have responsibility you know, upon them as well, so rights upon them as well. So we cannot hide away. We need to take and be brave, and this is something we need as sisters as well, to balance between, yeah, we have our ethos, the values, we are aware of our values, we are aware of our principles. It's not about to assimilate and feel inferior, it's nothing to do about inferiority. I'll go ahead with without superiority, without inferiority, as an equal human being in society, and to take my role and responsibility.
Jazakallah khair for your passion and energy, Dr. Lamar, really coming through, and as all the other speakers have been inspirational. I'm just going to pass you over to Brother Khalik to see if there's any questions from the floor, and inshallah speak to you.
Jazakallah khair, and such a so much inspiring and inspirational speech that you've given there, with so much information from the scholarly side, and from the seerah, and also from, you know, the lives of such inspiring women, that often we sort of just shy away from speaking about this, and I think it's really, really important, as you mentioned, that we need to learn from that. There are a couple of anonymous questions that have come through, but I think I'm going to start off with just asking Awais, who's got a question, and then I'll move over to the questions that I've received anonymously. I'll read them out.
Hey, assalamu alaikum. I really enjoyed listening to your talk. Just a quick question for me, or it might actually be too quick. So you talked about discrimination in organizations. I want to ask about the Organization of Islamic Scholarship. Have you found women have the same opportunities and support from the male ulama versus people also taking the route as male scholars?
Look, I talk generally because I don't want to specify any. I worked in many organizations. I'm talking about the concept itself. But the concept itself, women, even non-Muslim women, this is by research, they are facing discrimination in terms of opportunities for training, in terms of being taken seriously, in terms of being trusted, in terms of opportunities for training, opportunities, promotion, equalities. So these are issues that are raised in the literature. And there are issues also which are which exist in many Muslim organizations as well. So yeah, these are they do exist. So if you are women, they do face there are issues with promotion. Sisters and women generally may have the conflicts between the workload, because if you want to go higher, then means lots of work and time consuming, and this is many sisters may hesitate to go forward due to the balance and priorities for their families. So this could be from the side of the sisters at times, or women in general. But some other times it's more of how we see power, how we see someone who's able, how we see. So we may put forward male, because they have networks in the community, looking and like they meet in the masjid, they have their networks, they are friends, they bond with each other, so they can help each other outside. They can give each other networking opportunities which they're not provided for through those circles to equally to women in these organizations. So different, the relationship at work and how this plays out for the opportunities for women, yes, they do affect how the leadership and how much you go into the leadership. Means myself, I was fortunate. I got the leadership for 2 MA courses and 1 MA for 3 years. I learned so much. I got the senior fellowship for the Higher Education Academy. But many sisters, they didn't get that chance. And part of it, as I said, is also not only to do with their very able sisters. They were qualified, and I could see some male who are less qualified, and with less skills, and they got opportunities in some top universities, and some sisters who are well qualified and everything, they didn't get those opportunities, similar opportunities. So there are real challenges, and we are losing talents in our communities, and something has to be strategic. I think we need not only to leave it go. Now is going just like a ball rolling, and I think we need to take responsibility of that, and really, and my call now is really for those who really care for nurturing leadership in Muslim community, for women specifically, not to be left for chance. It's something to look for those talents and to nurture them, and also to open opportunities for them, because there are struggles and there are obstacles, and to see how we facilitate and make the most of the talents we have in the community. There are some initiatives I've seen, like scholarships from businesses to some female talents to go and finish their postgrads, which is excellent. We need opportunities as well for work experience and networks and developing skills. All that, I think we really need to be strategic and planning and action, because we are losing talents in Muslim communities. And I've seen, as a teacher in secondary school, I have to say it with a sigh. I've taught some girls who were talented. They have unique talents that as a teacher, you see here and then. But then I asked about them 10 years after, 15 years after that I taught them. They were nowhere. They stopped at their GCSEs. And I just wonder, we need her as a mother. That's excellent. But as a mother, we need her as well to develop her for the community to benefit from her talent. Why do we bury her talent? If I have someone like this, there is no contradiction between her being devout, being pious, being with hijab, and her learning the skills and being in society and with her values and confidence. I don't see myself in a contradiction with that. Actually, we need more not to put those binaries between either I choose between my devotion and hijab and I stay at home, or between being an active and this and that. I don't see the binary. I think there's a lot of issues we need to revise in the community, and we can do a lot of better than we are doing at the moment.
It's interesting that you mention it in that manner, because actually another of the anonymous questions alludes to this point, is that they also see the religious women who class themselves as religious as giving up everything else, even to the extent as giving up their education and saying, no, I need to be a devout mother, or I need to be a devout wife. I don't want to do anything further. And this is almost like a stigma, or even a way in which they suggest that this is the way Islam suggests that we should be. How do you approach that conversation with somebody who is a devout Muslim and who is actually, very, very religious, but then explain to them that actually, you know, you've scored great grades and you can actually support your communities, you can support your family more by becoming more educated. I think the question really is alluding to, actually, we see religious people giving up on all of those things. How do we explain to them, actually, you can do both?
That's a very important aspect and to discuss. I always ask, you know, some of my students are with niqab, and I support if this is her wish, and if this is where she believes that niqab is, she has to wear the niqab, then I defend her right as a woman that she is making the choice. And I think this is her choice, as the other one is her having her choice to wear or not to wear hijab or not to wear hijab, or to wear niqab or not to wear niqab. As long as she is choosing that, and as long as this is her choice, then I support that choice. I ask sisters who are wearing hijab or wearing niqab, why do you expect in the media debate about the niqab or about the hijab, someone, a male, to come and defend you? To defend your right to wear the hijab or your right to wear the niqab. I believe that sisters should be who they are, who they true, what they believe in with their values, but be there to be, if I am, you know, to be there to face society, basically, because sometimes we run away because it's the easy and comfort zone. It's challenging to be there. And we have to always break those kind of a comfort zone, but not to break the values. And for religiosity, what is religiosity and how to define it? This is very complex. I'm talking about the visibility, but what is in the heart, Allah knows, and who's closer to Allah, Allah knows. And so I'm not going into that. But if we are looking for those kind of visible signs, then I say to the sisters, I think part of being religious is to have knowledge, and part of being religious is to have action, and part of this action is to meet the responsibilities. Our responsibilities are in circles. One of them is the family. Of course, this is without religion. All parents, they have responsibility primary to look after their kids, to look after their family. But then we have other responsibilities as human beings. We have responsibility towards the society we live in. We have responsibility towards the environment. We have responsibility, and we cannot fulfill our responsibilities without knowledge. And this is why I really strongly ask sisters to develop their skills and to learn and to be educated. And then if they don't want to work as full-timers, or they have their own, they're making kind of conscious choices when they have actually the means to do that. Then in this case, rather than I find myself in a situation at a certain age when my children are growing up, they are far away now, and I am by myself, and I'm getting isolated and feeling like I haven't done much and I haven't done to my society. This is, again, even for sisters who are graduating from, I have to say, plain, sisters who are graduating from Dar al-Ulum schools, I think you have done great, and you've learned so much during those years. And for myself, I see this is great. I mean, for myself, it was my first experience when I got into the school to experience a school all for girls, and all about, the Islamic studies in this way. I felt I am back in history to see how things link, and I felt like a different, inspiring experience that I haven't experienced before. So there is an aspect, that a learning curve in there. However, this is not enough. I think we need to follow that, yes, and link that knowledge, information by itself. If I am memorizing books, is about gathering information. And knowledge in Islam is about action. So how I'm going to act upon this knowledge in the different spheres and responsibilities that I have.
That's really, really interesting. And Omar and Raghat have got a question, but before I'm going to hand over to them, because you just mentioned something to this, another anonymous question. The sister is saying, Jazakallah khair for such a great and inspiring talk. But from a scholarly perspective, should we just then simply accept we have more responsibility as women Islamically? We have to do more, have a career, manage the house, manage the children. Is that just something we need to accept? Or is there a right way to understand this from a scholarly way?
And we have to be careful as well not to overload the woman with you have to be working and caring for the family and this and that, and then she's crushed without help. I'm saying, you know, education I think is something essential and to fulfill our potential. And this is not something I can study when flexibly. Means I was studying as a mother with young children with the Open University, because at the time I was not able to go and study at the university. At times I had to stop. I had to stop many years because my children were too young, and it was not healthy for me at the time to hold all that pressure when I was in a certain time. I was studying then from home and doing my own program at home. I even went into programming and computing from home and developing languages from home. It's not necessary that I am actually out of home and I am actually doing that in the stereotype of empowerment versus submissive at home. No, I'm just saying there are always opportunities. Even if my circumstances do not allow me to go out, because my priorities now are not the best to go out, and I don't want to be pushed by also you have to. It's your plan. So you just gradually see how you develop yourself all the time. So there are certain times when I was not able to go outside as much. So when I was in Saudi Arabia, for instance, I put full program during those years at home with myself, autonomous. And now with the internet, we have plenty. So what program do I put to develop those skills? I can develop my IT skills. I learned so many programs. Later on, when in my own time, which I needed them later on in my studies and in my research, do lots of reading, there are so much potential I can do even if I don't go out. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah,
but
Jazakallah.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. Sorry, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat all of a sudden. I'm going to ask Umar and Raghat to unmute their line and ask the question, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Damar. Thank you so much for giving us your precious time. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah put barakah, blessing in all of your work and your efforts. I'm conscious of the time and how much valuable information you've already given us. So I would appreciate if you actually say we don't have time for this question. But my question really is, based on everything that you've said, and I'm so pleased to hear the passion about encouraging women to excel in every arena of life. I'm wondering your reflections generally on feminism. I'm sure it's a sort of can of worms that may have just opened, but yeah, in the 21st century, your thoughts in general, pros and cons.
This is very, kind of big question. But I would say I don't see the roles of women personally as imposed by the traditional binary between either to choose between empowerment as defined within a Eurocentric role of women, or if I stay at home means I am submissive and I'm doing nothing. I don't see that. However, on the other side, I don't see religiosity as means I have to isolate myself and I have to be without agency, because it's not what I've read from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. So I am for the indigenous kind of the role of women, rather than borrowing from ready-made recipes that have been developed for certain circumstances, for certain women in certain contexts of history. Whether it worked for them or not, this is another issue. But the issue here is are there some things which are shared? I think the feminism I experienced personally in Algeria was exclusive. It was not inclusive for me as a woman who chose to wear the hijab. It was, as a woman, I have to be like the French colonial woman if I am educated. So my hijab, long dress, was not welcomed at school. And I had to suffer bullying, and I have to suffer this in the name of freedom for women and the name of modernization of women. So in this case, I see this model or this of feminism. I see it as not feminism. I see it as a branch of colonialism in the name of modernization of the other. However, I see also, I read for other types of feminism, which is about the women to choose. And in this case, if I say about reflexivity and being aware of who you are, I don't think this contradicts with my principle as a woman when I read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and read my role as a woman like Khadija radiallahu anha, and be confident and be even active economically if I can, or this is my talent, or knowledge like Aisha, this is her talent, or in other leadership like Nusayba, Umara, or in Salama radiallahu anha and her role, or Rufayda. I see many samples in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ of women. And I feel like if I look for the Quran, if I look empowerment, I personally, I've learned the empowerment not from the feminist tradition. I think, thought is more of the sort al-mujadila. That woman who was arguing with the Prophet ﷺ and she was heard. So when I'm talking about voice for women, I am more influenced by my reflection on the Quran and reading Surah Al-Mujadila. قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها وتشتكي إلى الله. So this woman who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and Allah is saying that He heard her complaint to the Prophet ﷺ. I always contemplate on that. A woman arguing with the Prophet ﷺ, who was the leader of the community and the prophets, with the authority of the capital P of the prophet, and the final of the prophets as Muslims, as we believe. In that moment when she was disagreeing and find herself comfortable enough with that male authority in the community to say, I don't take your judgment. I don't see fit for my circumstances or for how I understand Islam. I am now, this is what happened with the children. This is what happened with my situation. I complain to Allah. I think this comes at the core of the principle of Aqidah, is to believe in Allah and to be attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this great freedom and great empowerment. So if I wear my hijab, I don't wear it because of my husband wants me to wear it. If my husband forced me to take it off, I would personally choose to, if he insists on that, I choose the hijab because that's my choice, because that's my relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal and not worshipping any other human being. So in this case is more of a spiritual journey, spiritual freedom, which is a concept of spiritual freedom. I take the women's choices within their spiritual freedom and what they make out of it. And I don't see this submission to my Lord fits well with the submission how is understood by the part of feminism that was developed in Europe in certain circumstances. So I hope this answered the question.
Yeah, it's very comprehensively. Thank you.
You put that so wonderfully in words.
Thank
you. Jazakallah khair. That was excellent. I mean, I think it's a really interesting topic and a rather big one, actually. Is it actually more liberalization rather than feminism, in light of Islam? But actually, there's another question, and again, sister doesn't want to give her name, and I'm not sure if it's along the same theme, but it's certainly an interesting one. And it says, for the younger girls who see the modern women as inspiration, and I think in brackets that the sisters mentioned, like the Kardashians and these other social media sort of people are inspiring the young girls at the moment to dress in a particular way or behave in a particular way. Who can they seek inspiration from the seerah in terms of actually is there somebody in particular that would be really more pertinent, that they can seek some kind of real inspiration from, that would be, you know, close to how life is now in the current society, where you know, like you mentioned, liberalization or this kind of thing is impacting the younger sisters at the moment?
It's an important question, aspect that I forgot to touch upon, about our girls at home and what we need to deal. You know, in dealing with, we have to appreciate that the girls are going into so much conflict. Not only the girls, even the boys. Our children here, you know, we are bringing them up in into globalized context in which there is lots of conflict of values and contradictions. So part of dealing with that is to how to handle conflict, how to handle contradictions. So this is where we need the flexibility and understanding and connection, while to balance between these are my values, I am proud of my values, but at the same time I understand others and I'm ready for a dialogue and I'm ready for understanding. It's not about rigidness. You know, is about, and this comes from the family. So when in communicating the values, I think it's very, and we are talking about leadership for girls, I think part of it starts as family. And this is a very important part, is nurturing their confidence. And part of this is to open that communication, the dad or the mother or the brothers, to give that kind of the space for the right Rasulullah he gave to the companions. The Sahabiyat used to come to Rasulullah and have a debate with him and discuss and have jidal, you know, and have this argument with him. And we should not kind of silence those voices of our girls at home. You should, if you love Allah, you have to do this. If you love Allah, you have to do this. No, I think we need to understand the conflicts and contradictions they are going through, and we have to distinguish between. Sometimes I've seen some parents, they mix between something is not my taste and between something is haram. Something is not my taste because of my age, because of my generation, or because of my culture, is something different than whether it is haram or halal. And at times, as a parent, I have 4 children, so sometimes they come and say, okay, it's not my taste, but it's not haram. That's fine. You know, you have to understand the change of time and the change of the circumstances, and we have to have rahmah, compassion, mercy in our tarbiyah, in our dealing. Rasulullah was rahmah lil alameen, was a mercy to the worlds. And in our, you know, dealing with our children, we have to have this rahmah, not judgment, not courts. We are not in courts. We are in human souls. And in that, we have to give sometimes choices, even if we don't like those choices. They have the right, and they will choose what they want to choose at certain ages. So it's better to have this communication and open those channels and leave the trust and open the dialogue. That will build better relationships and more convictions which are owned by the people. We know if the belief is not owned, is not a true belief. If it's imposed from outside, is hypocrisy. And what we want is we want the heart, we want the true. And that truth only comes through the conviction, doesn't come by force. There is no force in religion, whether we like it or not. And our children are not our ownership. They are separate individuals who are growing as human beings. We cannot force them into things if they are not willing to do so. Nuh alayhi salam could not force his child, and he was the best da'i, you know, in his time, and he's one of the best prophets. So we have to be aware of our boundaries and our rights as parents, and also our responsibility, moral responsibilities. Forcing others. I met once a sister. She was crying. She told me she hates sujood because her mom used to put her foot on her head when she was doing sujood as a child and punish her because she was playing in the prayer. The sister is an adult. She said, I don't, I pray, but I cannot do sujood. When I go sujood, I have kind of traumatized. You know, some children are traumatized of learning the Quran. Some children are traumatized of academic achievement or of hijab. I myself, I'm against forcing the girls to wear
Oh, yeah, that's terrible. That is actually terrible. And I think the Prophet ﷺ, we hear about how he was with his grandchildren. When they used to come onto his shoulders, he used to stay in sujood for longer, just so that they could continue to play. And it's this cultural mindset that we have to sort of take away from that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help her for feeling so, making it difficult for her and the parents for putting them through that. So just moving on to that part of the question, who do you think would be a good inspiration from the seerah? I mean, is it just a combination of all the ladies at that time, all the sort of the mothers of Islam, or do you think that there is one particular one that would really inspire the younger sisters or the youth at this time?
I think there's diversity of the personalities in the seerah. One thing that the Prophet ﷺ nurtured is he respected the individuality of the companions, and he nurtured everyone based on their individual selves and their own personalities. And this is something that Ibn Khaldun mentioned as something to care for the individual. Rasulullah cared for the individual Sahabas, and to avoid the strict and the force in upbringing or in educating the Sahaba. This is why the individuality, I cannot point to one, because our girls are different and they are individuals. And what one personality can inspire, be the most inspirational to one, another one can be. So if I'm looking for knowledge, I'm looking for assertiveness, and maybe I'm looking for Aisha radiallahu anha. She was so knowledgeable. She is one of the 6 most knowledgeable companions about the hadith, narrators of hadith.
Yeah, subhanallah. So many she gave, right? MashaAllah.
If I'm looking for a story of love, and how actually a real love can be between the husband and wife, and how can be in depth, I can see for Zainab and her husband, and I can see how the challenges in her life when her husband, they loved each other so much, yet, and they waited for each other for so long after separation, yet if they found themselves in a very tricky situation in which her husband decided not to believe in her dad, even though he respected him. And this is because of the culture. He did not want to say he was a follower of his wife. And she loved him so much, she chose to stay and remain with him in Mecca, despite the hijrah in Medina. And he was not a Muslim, and she was the Muslim, and her dad was the Prophet. She showed her agency, but also she showed her love and care. He showed his individual part, but also he showed his respect to Zainab, which was so reflected in after he was captured in Badr and he was released to Mecca. Rasulullah asked him to send Zainab back to Medina, and he fulfilled the promise when he went. And also from the side of Zainab, she sacrificed the necklace of her mother Khadija to free her husband. I don't think this is because of lack of money. I really think because of the deep of love, because Rasulullah loved Khadija so much, and there's a strong bond with Khadija, saying, as you loved Khadija, I love my husband, and I want him to be free. So if I look for romantic thing, I can see this model. And if I look for more of a wise, calm thing, I may look for Salama, businesswoman Khadija, Rufaida as a medicine. Is different. There are different personalities, so I cannot point to one.
Yeah, so I think to summarize that is we all need to sort of engage with the seerah, and really sort of go down into the depths of it. Yeah, I mean, I think we've taken up so much time, but I think there are a couple more questions. So I'm going to try to take this one as the last one and then hand back over to Amir, because I think we've taken up so much of the time. And I think this one is women with strong voice and actions mostly have a stronger man behind them, pushing them to progress for themselves. The worry is for the women who don't have such support and cannot take a grip for their ambitious frustrations, yearning to grow. How and what can the sisters do? And do you have any strategies for that?
I have to stop for those women. They have men besides them who are supporting them and push them. I think the agency comes from within first, because there are struggles. We cannot go forward whatever support we have, if we don't have the will from within, because we will sacrifice our comforts. We have to face challenges ourselves. We have to face them. We have to keep going. And whoever man, whatever they want to give us, will not be able to give us the determination. We need to have that from within. The support that we say from whether fathers or is the facilitation, is actually the not to put obstacles in the way, is actually to facilitate, but the will and the power come from within ourselves. What I say to the sisters who, I would say, finding obstacles, I would say, from their environment, first ask yourself, do you have your vision? My goals, are they clear to me? My passion, is it clear to me? What do I want here in the future? And then gradually, how can I go towards that? I didn't come to PhD. I got a full scholarship with a stipend from the University of Nottingham for a PhD. But once I was actually in the English class, I was in the basic or intermediate level of English class. At that time, to be accepted at the university was a dream. You know, it's not about doing my postgrad. You know, it was, we have to gradually see, assess our skills, what, you know, our needs. What are our needs and priorities, and then see how we manage them. What are the resources, what resources are available, in which stages those resources are available, and then we manage that gradually. So if we don't have clear picture of what of our goals and of our potential and of our needs, I think it will be kind of dreaming without not a real action plan of how to do that and how to come towards that. And also flexibility and priorities. We have in Islam maqasid al-Sharia, the objectives of Islamic law, and we learn from it the priorities. And if we set our priorities right, and then we start gradually working towards from one priority to another, I think we can actually end up to our goals. But if we want to jump or we don't have a clear picture, it will be challenging. Even for those people who want to support us, will be challenging for them to support us.
Jazakallah khair. That's really, really lovely what you've described it so articulately. I'm going to hand you back over to Amir, but before I do, I want to ask, there's one last question left. Shall I, Amir, do we have time for the last question, or?
Why not? Why not?
Okay, well, this one's quite an interesting and a slightly controversial one. I think it comes across from the conversation from Lynn, actually, about sport and the stigma around the sport. And often some of the elders, I think the sister is asking, is that people believe that sport has a potentially biological effect on the sisters, and also sometimes what some of the sisters perceive as being acceptable Islamically from the clothing, others don't perceive that to be Islamically acceptable. So for example, there is hijab, but the clothing is quite fitting. And then, so for example, if they do running, or I think she mentions the hurdles, she mentions the hurdles, that they can have a biological effect for after they get married. So that's why a lot of the sisters don't go into these kinds of things. What advice do you have, or how can this kind of stigma be approached?
For the biological and things, I think it's better to invite a doctor specialized in that. But I would say, I didn't come across that, so I don't see how looking after our health would actually affect, unless somebody would want go athlete, or I think this is, I'm not specialized in that to answer that in terms of health and consequences for sports on women's body. But I would say definitely we all raced with Aisha radiallahu anha in a certain expedition when companions were far away, and he was racing with Aisha radiallahu anha. There is nothing, actually we need to look after our health. The sisters, I've seen many sisters, they come to their family and children and they neglect their health, they neglect their priorities. If they are not happy, they cannot look after a happy family. I think part of looking after the family is to look for all dimensions, our dimensions. Part of it, when I speak about knowledge or about part of it is about our physical health. It's amana. The body is a trust from Allah, and anything that would actually help us to look after this body and to keep it healthy within what we believe as if a sister sees, one sister can see this as fine for her, which is fine for her. I may not see it as fine for me. And that is fine, because then it's not here. Our talking here about leadership and roles is not to impose on sisters certain model of those speakers who are speaking today, but to see. To be critical. I am with the sisters to be critical and to be who they are, and to see their principles. And if something I don't see fit for myself, to go maybe and wear the certain clothing, say for swimming in a mixed area. Personally, I find I am reserved of doing that. However, I respect the sisters who choose to have to see that they need that and they do it, and like in Sister Lynn, she finds this is something to keep her faith, to keep her mental health, to keep her iman, and for this there are priorities actually. If this is how to keep her iman and to keep her spirituality, and this works for her, may not work for another sister, but this is working for her, and I think this is much better than suffering from mental health or suffering from kind of isolation. I've seen sisters being isolated completely and lots of health issues. So what is the dress? I'm not here to give the fatwas on the dress as well, because I think this is where it goes to sisters, and I respect their different schools of thought and what they choose in terms of their dress, and what I see fit for me in terms of religious verdict in fiqh. Another sister may not see it fit, and there are lots of debate upon even the things, and this is not our here to discuss on this, but it's there. And what I say to the sisters, I say, be confident and look for your priorities and your health. If I am not happy, I will not give this happiness to the family. So if I have a strong passion towards something, I need to look whether how can I nurture this, if this is something within the boundaries of my values, and be myself, but within my boundaries. This is why I don't see really the contradictions. But the fiqhi, this is something the sisters, they themselves, there are lots of debate on many issues. As I say, I just touched, for example, on what type of scarf I wear, what type of hijab I wear. And I don't see this. If I'm wearing this scarf, doesn't mean I am more religious than a sister who's wearing a different one or not wearing one. Maybe this one who's not wearing one is closer to Allah than myself. This is nothing to do. I'm just talking about the visibility of things which are prescribed in many fiqhi books. But the piety, Allah knows the piety.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Thank you for putting it so beautifully, actually, MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. Amir, over to you, and Jazakallah khair. It's been such a fantastic session. I think I've really enjoyed speaking to yourself and all of the guests that we've had, and I think it's been a great session. All the guests have sort of, all of the participants have, really enjoyed listening to yourselves. I've been looking at the comments. It's been fabulous. But handing you over to Amir, and Jazakallah khair for staying for so long. Amir?
Well, just to echo Khaliq's comments, Dr. Fuller, Jazakallah khair for some really powerful messages. you had touched upon all of the themes that we talked about off air, leadership, females as critical thinkers, and you spoke so eloquently about all of those. So Jazakallah khair again. I thank all the guests for their contributions, Maria, Lynn for bringing the concept of marathon to Sheikhs Breaks. It's now been 3 hours, so it really has been a marathon. So Jazakallah khair for all the participants who've hung on to the bitter end. But I think it's probably time to go to bed now. Dr. Fuller, could I ask you as a last request to finish with a dua?
I would like to say thank you so much for inviting me, and thanks to all those who are patient now and staying for all that time. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم ارزقنا العلم والعمل الصالح. اللهم ارزقنا درجات العلا من الجنة واغفر لنا. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وجزاكم الله خيرا.
السلام عليكم. جزاك الله خير. That's a beautiful dua there, and I'm just gonna add one last thing in there to say, oh Allah, we ask you to bless our wonderful guests. Oh Allah, we ask, please accept all the work that is being conducted to support and inspire our sisters through mental health, through sport, and through Islamic scholarship. Oh Allah, please bless all of our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, our daughter-in-laws, mother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, and our wives. Oh Allah, please help our brothers to support and encourage all of our sisters. And oh Allah, please bless our mothers and help us realize that under their feet lies Jannat. But let us not forget that the keys are obtained through our fathers. Oh Allah, please help us to learn from the seerah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as has been discussed today in throughout the session, and understand the inspirational women and men of that time. And of course, as always, oh Allah, I ask us to bless our community. They've taken time out to this true marathon that we've gone through to join this gathering. Forgive us for all of our shortcomings and accept all the efforts that are coming from the Al-Emaan Center, its trustees and its management. Oh Allah, we ask you to continue to unite our community and continue to help us flourish what we're trying to achieve here. Support us through these tough times through COVID, and support our community to build it and bring it from strength to strength. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Khalik, for a beautiful dua. And just to finish off, as with all Sheikhs Breaks, we couldn't leave Sheikhs Breaks without saying a quick word on donations to the masjid. We've been in lockdown on and off for several months now, and obviously we're sort of looking for funds, so please donate generously. You'll find the link on the website. And Khalik, I mean, it's been 3 hours, we might as well give it another couple of minutes, but you want to talk about the initiative, the Amazon Smile initiative?
Yeah, so very briefly, I'm not going to go into too much detail, and I think the finance team are going to send out some details on the various different groups anyway. But something amazing that's happened really is that we've the Al-Emaan Center and the finance team have really worked very hard to set up access to Amazon and access to Smile. Amazon, which is a charity that is, it's a charity initiative from Amazon, and it means that every time you spend money through the Amazon website or the app, it automatically donates to a registered charity, and it's really great. So it means that even though you're not directly having to take out money from your physical account and put it into an account, every time you buy something, they're going to put a percentage of whatever you've spent into the charity. And we've registered Al-Emaan Center for this, and I can personally tell you that I'm really enjoying using it. I put it on my phone about a week ago, and I've you just see it every time I order, which is not as often as my wife orders, of course, but you can just see the numbers building up. So I do encourage you to look out for the messages and, you know, just switch over. By the way, there's no difference between the app or the website. It's exactly the same. The only difference is that every time you spend, Amazon will donate some money. So there's my plug.
And as I said before, if my wife Sophie gets onto that, I'm sure we can pay off the current pretty soon. So
I think between both our wives, really, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think that's a wrap for this evening. So again, Jazakallah khair to all participants and all our lovely guests. Stay in touch with the Al-Emaan Center. Watch out for the emails, the WhatsApp. We're now on social media, so you should find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Inshallah, we'll see you all at the next Sheikhs break. So from myself, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.